How you doing? So I was like, okay, I love this area.
For lots of reasons.
Lots of reasons, the traffic just went up.
Yeah.
Okay, Travis.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like it's 9 o'clock, Jerry. All right, can we call to order, do a roll call?
Put your mic up there, Trav.
Oh, you can't hear that? Sorry. I thought I was talking into it real loud earlier. That's why I pushed it back. All right, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and roll call, Jerry. Everyone's here today. All right, so then, what are you looking at, PJ? Is it really loud?
No.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Looking
You're
at
good.
the lights.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate the interest.
I just wanted to make sure this, I'm not speaking way too loud because I can talk really loud. All right, so we have everyone here. Audience, just so you have a, if you'd like to pick up an agenda off the back bookshelf, you're welcome to go back there and get one. Today, we have Deb Hadcock from the Board of Commissioners sitting on our board today, so thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
All right, and approval of the August 14 minutes, please. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and is there any errors, corrections, or anything that was noticed in those?
Mr. Chairman, I'll vote to, move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the day's agenda. Any discussion on the agenda today? We have any concerns, questions, or
I'll make motion to approve the agenda for today.
motion?
Second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the current, pardon me, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. All right. Consent calendar, PJ.
PJ Conover, Director, Planning Department. The following items have been placed on the consent calendar for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decisions. There's quite a few to read. Item 3, conditional use permit review 1204 for Nancy Kimball to review a multifamily dwelling unit triplex in a suburban residential district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1204 with 5 conditions. Item 4, conditional use permit review 1227 for Mike Dressler to review a vacation home rental in a suburban residential district. Staff recommends to continue the review of conditional use permit 1227 to November 13, 2017 Planning Commission meeting by the applicant's request. Item 5, conditional use permit review 1531, Kelly and Lana Jensen to review living in an existing residence while building a new single-family residence in the suburban residential district. Staff recommends to end conditional use permit 1531 with the applicant's concurrence. Item 6, conditional use permit review 1618 for Steve and Catherine Ventiker to review a vacation home rental on the subject property in a low-density residential district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1618 with 16 conditions. Item 7, conditional use permit review 1620 for Perry and Vicky Van Newkirk to review an accessory structure, which would be a pole barn, prior to a principal structure on the subject property in a low-density residential district. Staff recommends to continue the review of conditional use permit 1620 to the September 11, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. Item 8, conditional use permit review 1621 for Jeff Liddell Family Trust to review an accessory structure or barn prior to a primary structure and to also allow an RV to be used as temporary living quarters during future construction of the barn and family residence on the subject property in general agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1621 with 15 conditions. Item 9, conditional use permit review 1623, Charles and Mary Pringle to review a recreational vehicle to be used as temporary living quarters during the summer months on the subject property in a low-density residential district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1623 with 10 conditions. Item 10, conditional use permit review 1626 for Terry Sager to review a recreational vehicle to be used as temporary living quarters while building a single-family residence on the subject property in a low-density residential district. And staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1626 with 11 conditions. Item 11, conditional use permit review 1702 for Wester Construction to review a temporary portable asphalt batch plant and stockpile site on the subject property in a general agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 1702 with 12 conditions. Item 12, conditional use permit 1730 for Daniel Johnson, Highmark Properties LLC, Charles Johnson as the agent, to allow for a single-family residence to be used as a vacation home rental in a general agriculture district. Staff recommends to continue conditional use permit 1730 to the November 13th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. All right, 6 more. Item 13, conditional use permit 1733 for bituminous paving, Terry Sewell, to allow a temporary hot mix asphalt batch plant and stockpile site and contractor storage area for contracting work in a general agriculture district. Staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 1733 with 12 conditions. Item 14, conditional use permit 1734 for Sherry Wilkie to allow a single-wide mobile home to be used as a permanent single-family residence on the subject property in the suburban residential district. Staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 1734 with 9 conditions. Item 15, vacation of plat 1701 Walter Horton to vacate a plat of Lot 5, also in Section 27N21 of Moon Ranch subdivision. Staff recommends approval of vacation of plat 1701 with 4 conditions. Item 16, vacation of easement 1704 for Dana Rogers to relocate an existing access easement and to add a 40-foot wide private access easement. Staff recommends to continue vacation of easement 1704 to the September 11th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. Item 17, minor plan unit development amendment review 1302. Stephen and Kay French to review an existing plan unit development to allow for nightly, weekly, and yearly rentals in accordance with Section 213 of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. Staff recommends approval of the extension of minor plan unit development amendment 1302 with 9 conditions. Item 18, minor plan unit development amendment 1706 for Hans Peter and Christine Streak, FIS Land Surveying as the agent to amend the existing plan unit development to allow the road to be constructed with a 12-foot wide minimum surface area width and 4 inches of gravel, that a maximum of 10 bedrooms be utilized in the bed and breakfast establishment with a maximum occupancy of 24 persons at any one time, to remove condition 13, and that the specific uses of this plan unit development be for the resort development consisting of 10-bedroom bed and breakfast and a residential development not exceeding 1 resident per 10 acres in accordance with Section 213. Staff recommends approval of minor plan unit development amendment 1706 with 13 conditions.
All right, anyone that the staff want to pull?
Staff would like to pull number 18. It's one of the agent's requests.
Okay. Any others? Anyone on the commission want to pull any?
Mr. Chair, number 8.
Number 8. Anyone else? All right, anyone in the audience would like to pull any items from the consent agenda? This is the time you need to pull it if you want to hear it or speak to it. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to pull one of these items that were just read, please come forward and let us know. All right, seeing none, that leaves us with items 3 through 7, 9 through 17. All right, I would be open to a motion for the items to be pulled.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we'll, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, at same sign. All right, we'll move forward with those consent items. We just need to go ahead and go through the,
Number 8.
number 8, we need to go to 8.
There you go.
While Cassie is going to go through 8, I'm going to try and get the computer to work.
Good morning, Cassie Wilstead, Assistant Planning Director. Item number 8 is a conditional use permit review to review an accessory structure prior to a primary structure and to allow an RV to be used as temporary living quarters. Do you have a
Yeah.
specific question?
I do. My question is in the picture from 8/21/17 on the site visit, it looks like there's foundations poured for a structure. But in the recommendation, it says that a building permit shall be obtained for proposed single-family residence prior to any construction. And I just was wondering, are they getting a building permit? It looks like they've already got foundations in the ground.
He's working on getting a building permit. We're working with the highway department to get an approach approved for this property, because they're actually, they're in the process of trying to redo the easement that goes into this property, so we're working with the highway department to try to get him an approach permit, to be able to build his house. And when I was out there, he actually hasn't poured the concrete yet. Those are just forms. There's actually no concrete on there yet. He's done the dirt work, he's excavated everything, but those are actually just the forms. Because I went down there and I looked at them, because I had the same concern when I went out there, that it was actually the foundation.
Okay.
But it's just the forms.
So he understands though that he needs to get that permit then prior to.
Yes,
moving
he's very
forward.
anxious to get that permit. He just
All right.
needs the approach permit first.
No further questions.
Any other questions? Anything else from the audience or the staff? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve conditional use permit 1621 with 15 conditions per staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Takes us to item number 18.
Good morning, Brittany Molitor, Environmental Planning Supervisor. Item 18 is a minor plan unit development amendment, PU 1706, to amend an existing plan unit development to allow a road to be constructed with 12-foot wide maximum surface area width and 4 inches of gravel, that a maximum of 10 bedrooms be utilized in the bed and breakfast establishment with a maximum occupancy of 24 persons at any one time, to remove condition number 13, which was to allow for a language school, and that the specific uses of this plan unit development be for a resort development consisting of a 10-bedroom bed and breakfast and a residential development not exceeding 1 residence per 10 acres. Currently, as it stands right now, on the property, there is a bed and breakfast existing on the subject property. It was approved, this was a plan unit development that was approved in 1997 as the Coyote Blues Village Bed and Breakfast. It consists of 30 acres and it is own plan unit development. It was approved on June 17th, 1997 with 15 conditions. The lot contains a bed and breakfast with attached decks, an on-site wastewater system, and a shed. It was routed through the interdepartmental review, and there was one concern from the highway department regarding the width of the road, and then requesting that there are some kind of pullouts along the road. Staff did go out there and do a site visit, and we did notice there were 2 pullouts on the major turns on the property. It is pretty flat through there. Is it not working? Okay. And it's pretty flat through there, so if there was a need to pull over, there is room to do that. Staff has been out there twice. Both times that we were out there, we were never in a situation where we had to pass a vehicle. We were out there for a time period as, yeah, if I can get this up there. There's kind of a general idea where the road is. So staff is recommending approval of the plan unit development amendment with 13 conditions. I do believe the buyer's agent is here. He would like to clarify a condition.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jim Peterson. I represent this property has had a sale in between this process, so I represent the buyer who could not be here. Unfortunately, she was in a very severe motorcycle accident 2 weeks ago, and 4 plates in her face and jaw wired shut and that kind of stuff. But I'm here just to make sure that there's clarity on on a couple points here. I think everything is, going the right direction. There's just 2 points I want to make. One is there's a maximum density in this bed and breakfast of 24 people at any one time. For me, it says 10 bedrooms, but there's 10 B&B bedrooms and a living quarters. So there's technically 12 bedrooms, which would give 24. So nothing's changing in terms of septic or the density. I just want that to be clear that there's 10 B&B bedrooms and 2 residential. It doesn't, I think it could be read, misinterpreted on that, but that's one clarity point. And then the other point is they're supposed to, the road, this has existed for 20 years, so no real issues. As Brittany said, there's some pullouts. However, there is some deficiency in the gravel. It says that it's supposed to be, and I think staff has noted that the gravel isn't at the 4-inch, what they're asking, what the county's asked for. So those are just two clarity points and appreciate you pulling this, and want to just make sure that that's addressed or on record, I guess, or what, that type of thing. So that's all we're asking for as the new owner, is just those two clarity points.
Any questions for Jim?
I do have one.
Okay.
So on the gravel, is the clarification for the purposes of, saying that there is some deficiency, but that's the way it is, and so it's okay? Or is the deficiency just to recognize it, or the clarity to recognize it and to assure us that it will be upgraded to the 4 inches?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And so during this process, there was a holdback of funds to make sure we didn't know how this was going to go, so that there's the ability to address this and take care of it. So those funds have been held back and just need to be addressed. So that would be something, to answer your question directly, it would be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one more, if I may.
Go ahead.
I noticed there's a drainage that's, that the road crosses.
Yeah.
And it, by the photo, it looks like it's, enough of a drainage so that it shows up on the photograph. But is there any culvert or is there any issues regarding that drainage or is the drainage just so minimal that it doesn't matter?
When staff went out there is a culvert under the road at that location. And when staff did do our visit and we walked the road, that would probably be the only area that you wouldn't be able to pass, is where that culvert is.
Okay.
There's a few pine trees on the right-hand side. But other than that, everything through there was okay. And there was nothing in the drainage
Yeah,
as far
that's-
as moisture.
But it's good that there's a culvert there.
It's a drainage. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a seasonal, well, not even seasonal.
Right,
It's
but as
just-
long, as long as
yeah.
there's a culvert there,
Yeah.
then that's taken
Yeah.
care of. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any further questions? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, my only question was in regards to the clarification on the 10 bedrooms. It doesn't appear to me, based on the recommendations, that an amendment would be needed to any of those as I'm reading them. The concern really is the 24-person occupancy at one time for the sewage perspective. So there's 10 bed and breakfast bedrooms plus 2 for the residential quarters. Is that how you see that as well?
I think that's how I understood it from him. 24 total bed and breakfast guests.
Yeah, so that doesn't change from the original PUD, which had 24 density. It's just wanted to be sure that it was understood that it was 10 B&B bedrooms and 2 residential bedrooms in that facility. And that's what's been there.
I'm just wondering, do we need to clarify that in here, or was it clarified previously and we just kind of trimmed out some wording to make it flow smoother, or just out of curiosity?
Yes, it was never clarified before. I guess I would suggest that if you wanted to, change the condition number 7 to read that a maximum of 10 bedrooms be utilized in the bed and breakfast, and a 2-bedroom owner suite with a maximum occupancy of 24 persons at any one time. Because I believe the owner suite is a 2-bedroom, it's on a separate level, so it is not accessed by any of the guests.
That's correct. There's 3 levels and the owner has the upper level.
Okay.
I would,
You have to make a motion?
yeah, I would move to accept the language that Brittany stated for item number 7, so it's clarified per the request of the
Jerry,
agent.
what did you write down for that specific language?
That a maximum of 10 bedrooms be utilized in the bed and breakfast establishment in a 2-bedroom owner suite with a maximum occupancy of the 24 persons at any one time.
Does that meet your intent?
That would be my motion.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All in favor, same sign. All opposed, same sign. The motion passes. All right, that carries us to 19. Thank you.
Oh, looks like it might be working here now, timely manner. Item 19 is Item Plat 1722 to create Lot 6R and Lot 7 of Back Road subdivision. The applicant is Greg Bolt, and the agent is Grant Bolt. Surveying engineer is Heald Land Surveying, and we're looking at 10.18 subject acres. Essentially, the applicant is looking to subdivide the existing property into two, creating Lot 6R, which would be a little over 3 acres, and Lot 7, which would be a little over 7 acres in size. On January 17th of this year, the applicant received approval of a layout plat for the subdivision with 12 conditions, and also approval to waive 3 subdivision regulations, which would be percolation test prior to platting, topography at 5-foot contour intervals, and a scale of the plat not to be 1 inch to 100 feet. The existing property, as it exists now, is low-density residential, which is its current and future land use. Access is off of Silver Mountain Road by way of a shared 40-foot wide platted access easement between existing lots 5 and 6. There's a building permit for a 20 by 30-foot garage, building permit for a single-family residence. There's a current operating permit. There is no road district or flood hazard on the subject property. Again, the applicant's request is to create Lot 6R, a little over 3 acres, and Lot 7, a little over 7 acres. This was routed through the interdepartmental review. The main concern that came back during the layout plat from the Highway Department was a note that read, access to Silver Mountain Road for proposed Lot 7 must be common to Silver Mountain Road for proposed Lot 7, Access to Silver Mountain Road for proposed Lot 7 must be common with the shared access for Lots 2 and 3 or with Lots 5 and 6, essentially saying that no new approaches will be approved off of Silver Mountain Road because of the site distance on that curved road. Some of the conditions from the layout plat have yet to be met. Item number 7, which talks about a building permit prior to the minor plat being accepted by the office as an application. That building permit did not come in, but our office took it in anyway, so we just added it as a new condition onto the minor plat, which is not uncommon. Also, item number 1, certificates of the street authority needs to be changed, and again, that's not an uncommon item. And the statement of understanding, condition number 11 of the minor plat has yet to be signed. All of those are added to the minor plat conditions of approval. And with that, staff would recommend approval of minor plat 1722 with 9 conditions.
Any questions for staff?
One, Chairman.
Go ahead.
G says Black Hills Electric Cooperative. Black Hills Electric Cooperative has issue with this minor plat request. PJ?
That's all we got. We haven't heard anything else, even after trying to find out what the concern is.
Did the applicant try to call Black Hills Electric as well?
I don't know. I know the landowner, the father, when I called him, he was out of the state, and he said that his son was going to take care of the building permit last week, but his son's actually was busy with whatever their business is because of the hail damage that came in.
The applicant's son was going to take care of this? Is that what you just said?
Of the building permit, not necessarily Black Hills Electric Cooperative. I don't know if they've contacted them or not.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear what their concern was.
Okay, let's see if they're.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not here.
And number 2, did they follow through with the approach with the highway on the easement?
According to Highway, they don't have any concerns as it is now, but I just put in the comment from the layout plat to reiterate what Mark Shook's comments were, because right now they don't have any concerns.
Okay, except it would be desirable for the radius to be 55 instead of, although our standards do not apply to access easements serving only 2 lots.
Yep.
So that, you said that's going to be addressed in the layout plat? You're going to have,
The layout plat's been done.
okay?
So what'll happen is when they come in to apply for any new building permits,
Yes.
the approach will have to be approved through Highway anyway. At that time, Highway will address any of their concerns.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we address the Black Hills Electric at that time too? By that time, before they get the building permit?
Sure. Or we can add it as a condition that prior to recording the plat with the Register of Deeds, staff contacts Black Hills Electric Cooperative to address concerns.
Can we put that as, that would be my motion?
Absolutely.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Rich.
There is a motion. Go ahead.
PJ, it seems to me that there's an inconsistency between the writing here on the item and the map, because on the map, it shows that Lot 7 is the one that's roughly 3 acres, and Lot 6R is the larger one, roughly 7. And in the text, it describes,
No, you are absolutely right.
Travis, we
you're
have to
right.
vote on the motion too, honey.
Say again?
We have to vote on the motion.
All right, but do we need to move on that motion first before clarifying stuff? Because we still have to, I mean, there can still be discussion before voting on it.
What
Or
you
you
do
just
is,
talking about
what you do
rewording
is
it?
you have a first and a second.
Right,
And then any discussion on the motion,
right,
and then you vote on the motion.
gotcha.
Okay.
That's right,
You're okay.
you're good.
learning.
I was thinking that we needed to find out from the individual in the audience, but he's not here today, so that's why I was kind of waiting, I wanted to get their discussion. All
Okay.
right, so you're right. Let's vote on there was a motion and a second. Everyone is aware of what the motion and the second is, right? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
All opposed, same sign? All right, it carries. So now,
And yep, I marked those down to be correct before the
Okay.
next.
okay, so those are to be corrected.
Yep.
Okay.
So staff will be recommending approval of minor plat 1722 with 11 conditions, will be the one added about the power company.
Right, okay. All right. Moving on.
Well, you need to make a motion then.
Any other discussion?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Boy, you threw me for a loop there, Deb.
That's okay.
All right, any
You're learning.
further discussion on this item at this point in time? Any other questions for staff? Or, go ahead,
Yeah,
Rich.
Mr. Chair, it just seems like there's a lot missing yet on the minor plat and some of the things that need to be supplied by them. Is it typical for us to approve a minor plat like this and say that you've got to fix all of this stuff and then let it come through just as a matter of like making the process go quicker? It seems to me that all of this stuff should be here and be ready when we're voting on it.
I agree. What we have done to try and help out the applicants is after you would make the recommendation with the conditions, then it would be on staff to make sure everything is done prior to being recorded. There is some items on here that still need to be addressed as far as that easement, proposed easement, more bearings, more distances, that still has yet to be done.
Okay, so if we approve this, they come back with a revised plat, they meet with you, and you ensure that the proposed plat is completed and incorporates all of the recommendations and the responses.
Correct. There's different processes for plats. Right now, what this one would normally be is a layout plat, which is kind of the applicant saying, here's what I want to do, and then we go back and say, if that's what you want to do, here's what you have to do. Sometimes things change in between the layout plat and the minor plat, which they did on this one. There was a proposed lot number change by the surveyor. But if you look at condition number 1, that reserves us the right to see it one more time and do the 3-step process, which includes the final plat, and there's also a fee for the review by staff on that. So we do get to see it one more time, and that's what condition number 1 covers, because there are the concerns.
Okay, so then if they bring it back to you and it's not good to go, does that process just keep happening until you guys are good with it, or what is the final plat process?
So the
may be
final plat
necessary?
is an administrative process. It wouldn't, the planning commission would only see the layout plat or the preliminary and/or the minor. And then all the items are addressed there at the planning commission level and at the board level. And then if it's recommended for approval from here, moved up to the board, then the final plat process is administrative, and it's on the planning director to make sure all the conditions are met.
Okay.
And the planning director, only in that case, signs off on the plat. Otherwise, I don't sign them.
Okay.
PJ, just just to let you know, Rich, too, I started going to the dirt meetings that they have on the Thursday, so I can start learning more of this stuff from behind the scenes stuff. And they were talking about they talk about these things pretty in depth in those meetings as well. So I'm sure that, we're gonna be working and keep an eye on some of this stuff. There were some other concerns with it too, but I'm sure we'll get to those a little bit later as well. All right, so where were we at here? I got lost in some of that conversation. I am so sorry.
I believe there was a motion to approve.
There was a
with
motion, we were just in
11
discussion,
conditions, I don't know, was it seconded?
Yeah, by,
And then
Laura-
second,
Or Deb and Rich.
Devin Rich. Any further discussion?
Did Kathy's question get resolved on, I didn't hear whether
Yep, we'll make the changes.
okay.
The edits. Okay. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right.
Thank you.
To the next item. Thank you.
Good morning, Amy Rotering, Planner 1, agenda number 20. The request is a minor planned unit development amendment, PU 1705, to amend the existing Sunset Ranch planned unit development to reduce setbacks from 25 feet to 12 feet along the west property line on the subject property in accordance with section 213 of Pennington County zoning ordinance. The applicant, Tanner Colburn, is in the audience today. This has gone before the planning commission a couple of times now. Staff is recommending to approve the minor planned unit development, PU 1705 with 23 conditions. Just to briefly review the staff report with you, the applicant, Tanner Colburn, is requesting to allow 12-foot setbacks side yard in lieu of the 25-foot setbacks in order to build a garage and place accessory structures on the subject property. The planned unit development was approved in 2005 and has been amended in 2007 and 2008 to include 22 conditions. On the subject property, there is currently a single-family residence with an attached garage that was converted to living space and a few storage sheds that, as a condition of approval, the applicant must obtain building permits for these storing sheds that exceed 144 feet. A couple of updates from the last planning commission. On July 31st, staff performed a site visit with the ordinance enforcement, Pennington County Fire Administrator, and the New Underwood Volunteer Fire Department. In that site visit, there was a list of recommendations to make the home and subject property more fire safe. At this time, Pennington County does not have fire safety ordinance in effect, so these findings from the site visit are only recommendations. And there's a list of 10 that essentially are addressing ember traps and grasses and just to be more fire safe along the property. On August 15th, staff received a revised statement from the applicant addressing the desired setback reductions to the 12 feet and a plan for handling the fire safety recommendations and other issues that have come up during the previous planning meetings. These statements state that the structures are for personal use only and have never nor will he ever be using these as residence as a home occupation. Yes, so staff is recommending the approval of minor planned unit development amendment PU 1705 with the following 23 conditions.
Any questions for staff? I'll just give you guys a heads up. I did go and visit the property, like I said, after we originally had the meeting there. So I've had some conversation with the applicant and with some of the neighbors. So just moving forward, wanted to give you guys a heads up on that one. But if there's no questions for staff, does the applicant want to come forward? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have some questions. I was not at the last meeting, but it appears that we have a garage or an extension on the house that is getting added on, and now it falls within the 25-foot side yard setback. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it looks like there was a significant number of people that signed a petition that wanted that not to happen or to deny this.
That's correct.
Was that discussed at length at the last meeting?
Last meeting, no, because it was continued since the applicant wasn't here. The previous meeting, I do believe it was discussed quite a bit, and I do believe some of the neighbors did go around and talk to some more of their neighbors, and we had some more discussion, so.
Is there any of the neighbors in the audience today?
I do very well.
Okay.
Yep.
So my next question then would be, the next door neighbor, are they one of the people that are opposed to this?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I have a question for
By all means.
Mr. Colburn, if you're willing to come up, sir. My question is have you approached your next door neighbor about this? And it sounds like they're not in favor of it, but it looks, it's a brand-new subdivision or a fairly new subdivision, and we're already basically going back on some of the side yard setbacks. And have you had any discussions with your next door neighbor about this and/or, potentially purchasing some property from him to maintain the setbacks within the subdivision?
I have not. At the beginning, I tried reaching out, introducing myself, but we don't really get along the best. So after that, I just kind of try to stay to myself and not really talk to him. Once I've been learning that there's issues, I've been just trying to take the steps to move forward. I work out of state a lot, so I'm not home a lot. I have 3 kids at 3 years old. So I'm busy. Once I heard all of the issues, I want to make everything right. So, I mean, I'm willing to do whatever I can. It's just I'm bulging at the seams. There's nowhere really for me to build my garage once I finish the living room, so I have more space, and then I have nowhere to park. Winters kind of suck, so I wanted to build a garage on. I mean, I don't want a bad place. I'm young. I like living where I am at. I don't plan on moving. I mean, I moved here from East River, South Dakota, and it's way better here. So I'm willing to work. I want to do whatever. I know he's not interested in selling any of his property, especially to me. But
And so is the garage already built?
the garage is partially built. If for any reason it doesn't get approved, I'll go out there and tear the whole thing down. I'm not worried about that. I didn't know when I was doing it how far it was. So, I mean, if I'm in the wrong, I'll completely tear it down. I've been just trying to take all the steps to move forward to get everything in compliance with all of your ordinances.
What do you do for a living, sir?
Sell roofs.
Sell roofs?
Yeah, like exterior stuff. I work for All Terrain Exteriors. So I've been working in Wheatland, Wyoming, trying to wrap things up there so I can come back with the recent storm in Rapid.
So you didn't know you needed a building permit for a garage?
The building permit for the garage, I got approved, actually. I pulled it off of the drawing I got from the builder. That was a proposed, not a actual. So I pulled the building permit after starting working. There's a reason we didn't finish. It didn't fall in, so I had he's not here today, the code enforcement guy come out and measure with me, and it was not. So then I got told these steps of applying to do this before continuing.
So you got approved and then you found out that it wasn't meeting the setbacks?
Yes, I pulled it from the drawing from the builder of where my house sat on the grid or whatever, and it said that it would be okay. After pulling it all and measuring it with the tape, it's not.
Okay.
So, sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Tanner, I have a question for you. Since this is your primary reason for this is for that garage, there's some other violations on your property about setbacks on there. Have you been able to address those?
The sheds, I was told, depending on this, I would move them absolutely. But the code enforcement officer said until we know, I mean, I want to pull permits, but I got told to wait until we found out the decisions from this hearing.
So the sheds were you put the sheds in there, or did?
I built the sheds and I put them on skids. I was unaware that anything over 144 square feet needed a building permit. Once I found that out, I came in to apply for them. They were only, I think, 19 feet or something like that. And I offered to move them or pay for the permit with the late fees, of course. And they said, let's wait, let's apply for this, see if this is how it works. And I'm just trying to make the steps necessary to get it approved.
Okay.
So if you get the side yard setback variance, you'll leave the sheds where they're at. If you don't, you'll move them because they're on skids.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for the
And
applicant?
can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just for my clarification, it seemed like at our previous meeting, there was some question about the actual distance of the setback. And as I recall, Amy said it was so many feet, and a neighbor was questioning that distance. So just to clarify, can we clarify the exact distance?
12 is what I would like to make.
Because I heard 19, and I've heard a bunch of numbers.
When Travis came to my house, he had asked, why'd you pick 12? I said I picked 12 because I know no matter what, I'm gonna need that gate, so that was just the maximum. The main reason for all of this is to be able to get a garage as big as I can to store all my stuff, so I don't have people complaining about the look of my place, and so my wife can park her car inside in the wintertime and everything. So the main thing after, I mean, it was all kind of rushed. This all got thrown on me, trying to figure everything out. I mean, it's no excuse. I know I messed up, but I've been just trying to deal with it. And then when he said maybe 18 is better if that's all you need to do this, I started to change it. Then they explained to me that, hey, now they don't make sense. The first one, so what I'm sticking with is 12 feet. If I can get it, that'd be awesome. The only reason that there was that hiccup is he had asked me why. And I said, well, I just picked 12 because I knew that was the closest I would ever be.
But again, just so I understand, when the garage was built, you had understood that you met the setback requirement until there was some further measuring, correct? And then after you're in the process of building your garage, and then it's discovered that it's really closer than 25 foot?
Yeah.
And then what was the sequence then where the sheds were put in place?
We're already up there. The sheds I built in the winter, and it's
Okay.
actually kind of funny. I knew I had a lot of stuff outside. I had some time. It was my off season, so I actually shoveled an ungodly amount of snow in the spot where the shed was, and I didn't think I had any issue because I was building on skids. And I thought, oh, it's not a permanent structure. I'll move it. No big deal. Of course, through all of this, I'm learning everything, which is a good thing. And I immediately tried to fix it, but we had to go through this process.
Okay,
So,
okay, thank you for explaining that.
absolutely.
Any other questions? All right.
I have a question, Mr. Colburn. Sounds like, though you had a few issues with the permits, your every intention is to clear this up and
Absolutely.
get your neighbors satisfied to the best degree possible. If this gets approved, by what time would you be able to see that garage built and the area cleaned up to their satisfaction?
I mean, if you set, is kind of the longer the better. I'm working out of state and I'm only home for maybe a day and a half every week or two. I mean, obviously, I care about this a lot and I'll take time off if I have to have a certain deadline. Something maybe by October 31st, if that's not too far. I mean, that would help me. Otherwise, I mean, I will go home. I care about it enough and I'll make it work on whatever you guys say. Whatever you feel is comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Is that it?
Further questions?
Mr. Chair, what is the height of the garage that you're proposing?
Just like a foot shy of my current roof line, but it matches the same pitch. I don't have that measurement off the top of my head.
So, single-story
Yeah.
garage?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you can see it, I tried, but there's this little corner is the,
Part.
that was it.
And it's also just a one-car
This.
garage, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, it's right there. That's where he stopped building.
Are there any utilities in the easement from the side of your house garage to the property line?
Like on the left, it's not, my garage wouldn't be covering it. The power comes in, it comes straight down that drive and then 90s to come over to my power box.
Typically, there's 8-foot, 12-foot, whatever side yard setbacks required for drainage and utilities, and my concern is are those going to be impacted by this garage?
I don't believe so. I think in one of the packets I received, they had gone out, but we can definitely ask. I think it's West River Electric.
I believe it was written in here that he will absolutely maintain an 8-foot setback. And
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Amy.
In the request for comments, West River Electric did make the note that he does need to stay outside the 8-foot utility easement. Staff did comment and make the note that he is asking for 12 feet, which is outside the 8-foot utility easement. So it has been asked and made aware that there is the 8-foot utility on that side.
The setback on the right side, where are we looking at the setback? By that brown house?
Left side, like where that blue thing's at up there on that
Correct.
picture.
What blue thing?
Oh, I just picked something color to see, but yeah.
That,
Like that's the setback.
the closest house? is
Is on
behind
the
it?
left side, and it's on the other side of his property.
So Deb, for
You have
the
better
site
pictures, honey?
plan,
Yeah, there
yes,
you go.
there you go.
Okay, so where's the garage there? The white part that's, has the white top,
Here.
where it's tie-backed or
Picture
whatever?
doesn't show it completely on my, like, I had built the garage after that was taken, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so that's the white part, and the setback's on the left of it, right?
Yeah,
And then what's that, a house or a garage or a shed to the left of it on the other people's property?
that is a garden,
Oh, garden?
yeah.
So how far are you away from their house if
Oh,
you do
their
that
house is,
set?
yeah, way on the other side of the
I
property.
figured, just to make sure there's no other living space by
Yeah,
there.
if their house was where mine was on that property line, I wouldn't even ask for this. Like
Okay.
if they were right next to each other, if you know what I'm saying.
All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So it appears from the aerial photo here that there are other lots that have several outbuildings. It's not unusual for people to have more than one outbuilding on these lots in the area? Okay.
Right. All right, any,
You know, and again, these are shops, storage.
Storage, yeah.
Okay.
all right.
I have another question for you. You said earlier that your intention to build this garage was a place to put your stuff.
Yeah.
But by stuff in the images I see, do you mean like tools?
Yeah, like, and that picture is old. I cleared most all that wood away. I have the wood that I plan on using there. I had a sawmill and
So
again was out of town.
this is what it looks like
Yeah,
now.
so that's what I have left. But it's more like it's right off my backyard. I have a gate coming from my backyard to come out into those buildings. The one in my sheds is for storage. The other one is like has all my tools and woodworking stuff, and then the area in the middle is just a spot that I can actually work. I can have a fire and cook out a little bit. It's like I don't know. It's just like the spot where I can show my hang out, work. You know what I'm saying?
So when your project is done, this area will be cleaned up?
Absolutely,
Right.
and I'll have them. The fire. One of the things that the fire recommendation was skirting them. I'll do that. They're all gonna have siding to match my house. I have shingles for them to match my house. I want to put gutters up on them with rain barrels to help water trees. I mean, I know that my neighbor thinks I've been there forever, but I've really only lived for 4 years in the house, and I feel like I've done a lot. I know it hasn't looked the best. I want it to look good. If you look at where I lived growing up, I want it to look good. You know, my mom wouldn't be proud if it didn't look good. Just time, you know, it's a fight between time and money, and I'm the only one working. The wife stays home with the kids, so my off season is basically from October 31st till the home show, and I can get a lot of work done in that time. But other than that, I'm working insane hours.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the applicant? I see, Deb, or
No,
do you have
I'm
some?
good.
Okay, I don't know, you
No,
just
I'm
looked like you
good.
did.
I'm good, just
Oh.
to hear from the neighbors.
Okay, fair enough, thank you, Tanner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any audience members like to come forward?
Sorry, we're dressed to paint, so.
Steve Bieber.
Barb Bieber. We
Uh,
are the neighbors.
First of all, we'd like to bring your attention to a picture of the power meter right inside the garage.
Go ahead.
I guess I'd like to know too, with that garage, how he plans to put stuff in it and a vehicle, because it's not big enough for that.
And it's pretty hideous how he's building it. He built the roof line. There's no walls, there's no foundation, there's nothing underneath it. He built the roof line.
You know, the setbacks were established for a reason. We are against changing the setbacks. We don't want a precedent started here. We have 26 out of 27 households that have signed a petition that don't want the setbacks changed. We live out there for a reason. We want our space.
And we could show you more pictures of how in the last week, it's already got more junk than it did the week before. We've been taking pictures galore. It just, It's
That,
never,
that
never
little,
ending.
that little garage that he says he's building is full of junk.
That and the people in and out of there, I don't, it must be his employees or what they are, they're just constantly people in and out all the time. And if he says he's not running a business out of there, I don't know what he's, well, I mean, it just must be his employees, they're running around in them pickups with his logos on them. Not gonna bore you with any more stuff that we already brought up last meeting, I'm quite sure everybody's aware of it, so.
So where's your property in relation to this?
Right beside it, right
You're
to
the
the,
one
right to the
next to it.
west.
Okay.
Yeah. And 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he's building a monstrosity of a doghouse. And I went down there and I told him, any structure, I'm a general contractor, I said, any structure has to be 25 feet away from the property line. He was told that.
Any further questions? No further questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience like to speak?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Jim Russell. I live northeast of Tanner's residence. So his property doesn't butt my property. But what I'm here to talk about is the setback. I have a neighbor below me. If this gets approved, he's gonna wanna put up a pole barn and it's gonna be right on my cattle fence. And I don't have cattle yet, or horses or whatever I may wanna put in there. But we did buy these properties to have people farther away. I don't like the setback change at all. I do not agree. I have nothing against Tanner. He's a busy man, I know that. But I don't want anybody that close to my property. That's all I have.
Any questions? None? Okay.
You look like you almost had a question.
She did that to me a while ago, too. I thought,
I must
oh.
look like I always have a question, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other audience members like to speak on this item? Okay, Tanner, come on back up since no one else is.
Tanner Colburn, just coming up to say a couple last things. The dog run, the day we completed it, he came over kind of with a smile saying, you know you're gonna have to tear that down, right? As nice as I could, you know, yeah, right, kiss my ass is what I'm thinking. But I go in, I find out he is right, I tore it down. I rented a Bobcat, I yanked every one of the posts with all the concrete in them, tore it down. When I built the sheds, they were on skids, so I didn't think they were a permanent structure. That was the only reason I built them there. It was in line, out of the view of my fence. I don't really have any other excuses. I just wanted to kind of clarify that so it didn't look like I 100% knowingly disobeyed it.
Tana, is your sheds full of stuff?
Yes.
And all that stuff that we're seeing by your garage that
The
you're building
garage-
is what?
The garage, I can take that all the way to the back. That stuff will all fit in my other sheds. It was like when working, I crammed all of the tools in there, not finishing it. Everything on that we were just starting the draw out of it, and it's not gonna happen, so why finish?
Looked like a canoe and some other stuff.
The canoe's up against the fence, that's not in the garage. But with that, I mean, I can move it and build something to put it on. I mean, whatever you guys need to set and whatever inspections I need to meet, if I have a list of them, I'll meet that. And then the last thing is, I understand could set precedents, however, it is a case-by-case thing, and you have to look at how their land is set up. And if they want to take the time and the money and to do this, I think if they can get it approved, they can get it approved, but that's all I really have. Any other questions?
Why, to me, the neighbors are seeing a lot of stuff, meaning maybe a lot of junk and everything, and they like to keep their stuff nice, Tanner.
Junk is
And
kind
that's-
of a term
I know,
depending on.
I
what
understand
you think
that,
of it
Tanner,
as.
but even sometimes with my neighbors, if they start piling too much stuff on, it's like, okay, if you can see all that, there's a difference than if you're putting it behind a fence, and you do have a fence there as well. I believe in property rights as well, but there's a part where we do have a code enforcement for, how you keep your property as well. So maybe that's some of the reason why you're having a few issues with your neighbors.
Yeah, and I'm trying desperately to get all that taken care of. By the end of this season, I should have enough money to be able to put my shop up. I've been working hard to get all that handled.
Okay.
But all in all, I want it to look nice. I don't want it.
And you've had 4 years.
I know, and there's lots happened in 4 years. I mean,
Okay.
but I don't want to sit here and try to say a sob story. Everybody has life, but
Right.
I feel like I've gotten quite a bit done in 4 years with work and everything. I mean, put a fence up, planted a lot of trees. I would have got a lot more done this year if I didn't get stopped right in the middle of it.
Does this come to the county commission? Okay.
Yes, it will.
No,
Okay. No?
No?
not on minors. Minors is just for the.
Okay. I guess I wanted to go look out there before I voted, but that was I apologize, I didn't have time this weekend to come out there and look at your property, but Travis, you said you looked, and what did you find?
My thought on this is I'm twofold on it, because I am a private property rights, as you know. I think people should be able to do what they want on their property within the ordinances and stuff. And so when I went out there and looked at it, I'm of the opinion of, and I was going to ask this question too, and I forgot to the other day, PJ, when I was in, but I'm almost of the opinion to at least allow for the garage. I mean, because of the purpose of the garage, what it's going to be used for after our discussion. And that's why I'm wondering if it couldn't be done to where just allow the garage to be at the size that it needs to be, but I don't know how that affects, or do you have to do it for the entire lot line? Now, the rest of it, I think, should meet the setback, so it doesn't look like there's this carte blanche approval of right next to the property line or next to the setback. So what's your take on that, PJ?
And I agree, because I was thinking, how far is the garage into the setback? And then why is he asking for 12 feet? Maybe we just grant the garage and not the extra feet that he's wanted.
Right.
If I could get to 12, I would like to have a bigger garage. I just went to the maximum I was allowed. But I
Okay.
would go as close to it as I could with the garage.
Okay. PJ?
That's not uncommon to do. Usually the Board of Commissioners will hear variances that never come before the Planning Commission, and those variances for setbacks are usually specific for a structure and only that structure on the lot line. So this would address one of the concerns from the neighbors of, if you granted 12 feet for the entire western property line, he could build anything up to 12
do
feet.
anything.
If you were to amend condition 18, the very end of it, and 12 feet from western property line for the attached garage via building permit COBP 17-0092. That's the building permit number for the garage. And then that way it would only be for that garage.
But can the garage be, how far is the lot line from that garage now?
I don't know.
On a standard tape, when we measured it, it was like 18, 19 from the fence line to the wall. Well, did we do the wall or did we do we did the wall? Okay, so
Yeah.
up to the wall was like 18 or 19 feet. It was in that range. And I
Okay,
didn't
so-
want to say guaranteed because you've got some wag in there.
Why do we have to give him 12?
I didn't suggest 12. I suggested only what he needed to
That's-
actually make the garage, and that was when we had that conversation.
Well, that's what I'm asking, PJ, that we grant the garage setback at the 18 or 19 feet, whatever that was, and not the 12 feet.
And only for the garage.
What we don't have is a stamped survey showing exactly where this stuff is. We don't have that. So if you were to approve 18 and we're not sure it's 18 and he's 17 feet 10 inches, he'd be in violation.
Maybe you should go find that out before we approve it.
That would be a cost on the landowner to hire a surveyor to have it done. Our staff does not do that. We don't have surveyors in our office.
Mr. Chair, can we put language in the condition that just says the garage at its current location? And not discuss 17 feet, 17 and a half feet, 18 feet? Can we just approve the garage at its current location and leave it at that? And I understand you can move the sheds to the east
Yeah,
and get the building permits all straightened out
perfect.
and make your neighbors almost happy.
All right with that.
I have one other question, though, and for those of y'all who may know the answer to this one, Steve and Barb, they did bring this picture, and they're showing this power inside the garage, or what will end up being the garage. Is there any major significance that I need to be aware of
And
that?
part of the garage, I planned on leaving open, kind of like with just a,
So it's like a carport.
yeah, that back side, it was more gonna kind of connect with my fence. And my thought behind that was that would be where I could like let the dogs in if they're muddy, let them not get muddy, then let them in the door of the garage to come in, because that'll be the living room over there. So that's not gonna be enclosed, is what I'm trying to say. They'll always be able to come get to that. It won't be inside the building.
So this will be open on two sides or one side?
One on the side with the power.
Just on the one
Yeah,
side?
the other one will have a roll-up door.
So people can see your stuff in there?
No, there'll be a wall on the back. Do you get that?
Okay.
No, there's like a, if I could draw it, like, it's, and this is all stuff that could be on the building permit, I could explain to somebody, but there'll be a garage door on the front, and then up to that power line, there'll be a wall coming down.
Oh, it's
And then there'll be like kind of an open, so to say, covered patio looking thing under there where the dogs could come in and then get into the house.
So a breezeway?
Okay, we'll call that the breezeway. Still a garage, like 8 by, I think it's 16, is gonna be a garage. It's gonna be enclosed with a door, and then the rest of that roof, instead of having my roof line come up and then stop where that power is, I continued it out and then planned on leaving the power out, so it would look a
So
little
it's going to be
better.
outdoors?
Yeah.
Okay. That's about the question that I had on that, seeing that it was going to possibly be inside. Any further discussion? All right, thank you, Tanner, appreciate it. Anybody else have any final thoughts on this real quick before? All right, Steve, one shot.
Yesterday, Steve Bieber again, just yesterday, my wife and I are out in the backyard, and we said, boy, I wish I had a video camera right now. His wife's in the backyard throwing posts over the fence. She must have been tired of looking at them back there, so let's get them to the other side of the fence, where they don't have to look at them. So, I mean, it's just, they're just not trying, in my book, to keep this place clean. Like I said, it's 4 years. He was told. I told him that what the rules or setbacks are and stuff, and he just absolutely refuses to follow them. He just breaks every rule there is until he's absolutely made to do it. His vehicles, he's running around with these vehicles pulling heavy trailers or stuff with his business, not a commercial plate on any of them. He's not gonna put them on until he's told he has to.
Steve, what does that have to do with this?
I know that, but he just doesn't follow the rules everybody else does. He just does what he wants to do and continues.
Can I ask you one question then?
Yes.
Do you have any violations, or are you violating any of the PUDs?
I was until here about a week ago.
Okay.
They changed them. We had chickens and.
Weren't supposed to?
No, weren't supposed to.
And then what did you
No.
do?
We had chickens.
I know, but what did you do?
What
You-
did I-
You went through a process to get it changed so that you could, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it's changed now, or it's in the process of being changed. so.
Process of being changed.
Yeah, it's like Ryan Caskey said, he said, that was an oversight. He said, I got chickens myself.
Gotcha. So, okay.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Yep, got
Okay.
one in the back.
Come on up, sir.
I'm John Colburn, I'm Tanner's father.
Hi, John.
I want to clarify a little bit as far as him telling us about on that dog run. He came over and asked us what we were building. We told him we were when we first started, told him we were building a dog run. He left. We finished the dog run. That's when he told us that we had the easement, we're in the easement, and then we had to take it down. So he wants miracles out of my son. His house looks pretty good, really, for what he's been doing. He made huge improvements, and he's not asking for too much. His house is so far away, and I just wanted to really clarify that he makes it harder on him than he should. You know, and as far as following the rules, well, we follow the rules when we know them. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you live in this subdivision?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
All right. Any further audience member would like to talk about this?
Commissioners. Jim Russell. I live northeast of Tanner. My only question, the power, does that have to be accessible by the power company? Is it gonna be enclosed, or does that have to be moved? That's the only concern.
The way I understand
The
it.
meter.
Right. The way I understand it, the way he was explaining it to us, is that that wall is going to come right before that power meter, so that there will be an access on around the backside of the home. It's kind of like an overhang, so basically the garage, he's got this much roof for the garage, if front and back, but he's going to bring that back wall here so that you can still come around and get underneath. Correct? So that's the way I see it. I envision it. There's a roof like this, and if you put the walls on the ends, it would enclose it, but the back wall is going to be moved in so many feet so that it's on the other side of that power.
Okay.
That's how I understand what he was telling me, and he's shaking his head yes, that I understood it correctly.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Rich?
When did he build the dog run?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Several years ago. All right. I don't think I see anybody else who would like to speak in the audience. PJ?
Steve Bieber again. If you guys pass this, it's what is there right now, and it can't get any bigger. That's as big as it can get, right?
That's what we've discussed. I can't tell you what the end result's
No,
gonna
I know,
be, but that's what we've
That's
discussed.
what we're discussing right now. So if it passes, it can't go any bigger.
If we go with what we've just said.
Okay.
Well, I guess, Mr. Chair, we should clarify, it could go bigger to the north and south.
That's true.
It
That
just
is
can't go to the west.
Couldn't go to the west.
You can extend it north and south, you just can't extend it west, right?
With a
Well,
building.
within the limits of what you get for a building permit,
Yes.
right? Because they'll have to come to you with a building permit that describes the size of the structure, correct?
We'd have to revise the current building permit. If you were to approve what's there today, doesn't mean that he can build to, let's say, 12 feet with a new building permit. He'd have to meet the 25 or come back.
If he wants to extend it to the north or south.
Correct. He can't make the non-conform, the issue worse.
Correct.
To the west.
Correct.
All right. Now, if there's not any further questions,
Okay,
TJ, do you want to dictate what your 18 would look like now?
Well, one quick change to 18, it should be Lot 3. It says Lot 4, so that's one thing that needs to be changed. And I guess I'm not clear on what the Planning Commission is looking to do. Are you looking to do from, as it exists today?
yes.
that's what I suggested, and I think Deb and I are interested in that.
Not the 12 feet, just what it is today.
Okay.
It may be that you want to use a nominal figure rather than an exact, so that you don't have to
To
go
go to
and survey.
survey. You want to somehow
Measure
describe
18
the,
and a half feet, say,
somehow describe the existing structure as it lies in relation to the west property line or something like that.
right.
That's where I was going, but I didn't know what we were going to put on it to make sure it doesn't come to the west anymore. So what would you put on it, PJ, so they couldn't move that building to the west any further than it is right now?
Well, that's what we were just hashing out here. So there's a building permit, COBP 17-0092, and on that will have the dimensions of the proposed garage. We don't know those dimensions right now, so I'm trying to fiddle with somewhere about the size as proposed on COBP 17-0092.
Yes, would be the west property boundary is
Yep.
what you need to describe.
And that the proposed, somebody tracked me here on copying this. Let's see, on number 12, that the setbacks for Lot 3, Block 4 of Sunset Ranch be 25 feet from the front, rear, and east property boundaries, and
And the west except for.
the west,
Except for the existing garage.
Take out the 12 feet.
yeah, I'm gonna need a minute on this to try and capture what everybody's interested in, because there's a lot of different moving parts on this one that we're trying to, we like to write the conditions so we head off any problems down the line, so.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Is that okay, Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a minor plan unit development amendment can be reviewed in 1 year? Do we usually review minor, do we? Okay.
We can, yep. This was actually brought up a little while ago with the concern about some of the common areas. The agent for the PUD didn't want to change anything else, but he did rededicate common areas.
Okay.
But it does definitely need to be reviewed and, well, altered at some point because a lot of these conditions are not needed anymore.
Okay.
So do we need to give you a minute so you can figure out the best way to word this?
If you don't mind.
Okay. All right. Well, then, I've never had this moment where there's like time that he's having
We
to
need
do
to,
that.
do you want us to wait or table it and then bring it back off the table? PJ?
You can table it.
Okay.
Till the end of the meeting.
Okay. Then
I'll make a
entertain
motion to table.
Motion?
for the end of the
Second
meeting.
that.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, it's tabled, so we can move on to the next item. And we'll, for those in the audience, we will be coming back to that one at the end.
Okay, Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Planning Director. Item 21 is Layout Plat 1721. This is a request to create lots 1 through 4 of Red Fern Valley subdivision. The applicant is Carol Marshall. The surveyor and the agent is DC Scott Surveyors. As this property exists today, it is 17.59 acres. It is zoned general agriculture district, which requires a minimum 40-acre lot size. It does appear that the lot size is legal non-conforming based on Register of Deeds records. Access to this property is currently off of Mystic Road via an existing approach. It currently contains a single-family residence, a studio, a garage, several sheds, and an on-site wastewater treatment system. As they are proposing this, Lot 1 would be 3.01 acres. Access to Lot 1 would be off of Mystic Road via the existing approach. And this lot would contain an existing studio with a deck. According to the building permit for that studio, that structure is not connected to septic or water, therefore it's considered an accessory structure. And a conditional use permit would be required for an accessory structure prior to a principal structure if this plat is approved. Lot 2 would be 3.11 acres. Access would be off of Mystic Road, it appears. And that lot would contain 2 existing sheds. Again, those sheds would be considered accessory structures without a primary, so Lot 2 would also require a conditional use permit if this plat is approved. Lot 3 would be 7.67 acres, and access would be off of a platted 40-foot wide private access easement as it's proposed through Lot 1. And that lot would contain the existing single-family residence, a shed, and the on-site wastewater treatment system. And then Lot 4 would be 3.3 acres. Access, it appears, would be provided via a section line on the southern border of proposed Lot 4, and it's currently vacant of any structures. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process, and a couple items of concern did come back. The County Highway Department had a concern regarding access to Lot 4, as the Forest Service does not recognize section lines. And so it appears that Lot 4 actually wouldn't have access. This area right here in front of this lot, Lot 1 of May West subdivision, that's a privately owned lot. But right here in front of that lot, this is Forest Service property, which you have to cross. You can see it in the picture here. Mystic Road comes down here. This little parcel right here is actually Forest Service property. So they would have to cross Forest Service property on this section line, and the Forest Service does not recognize section lines, so they would either need an easement with the Forest Service, or they would have to provide access to Lot 4 through proposed lots 1 and 3, or somehow dedicate access via this plat, or they'd have to get an easement approved through the Forest Service. The Register of Deeds also had a concern with access to Lot 4, and then the county environmental planner noted that there is no septic information that could be found for the house that would be located on proposed Lot 1. Again, as we have on that building permit for the house as they're identifying it on proposed lot 1, we have it permitted as a studio. And on that building permit, it specifically says that there is no water or sewer hooked to that. I did have a conversation with the agent on August 22nd regarding some of the concerns that have brought up. He stated that he was going to speak with the applicant to find out more about if there is a septic system that's serving the structure that's on lot 1. And if there is a septic system on that lot, we don't have record of it in our office, so the applicant would be required to do all of the permitting process and things like that, percolation test, profile holes, all that kind of stuff through our office to make that a legal septic system. If there is no septic system, it would be considered an accessory structure, and again, a conditional use permit would be required for that lot if this plat goes through. We also discussed the access to Lot 4. The agent stated that he's had a conversation with the applicant regarding access to that lot and some of the concerns that might be raised. She's currently using the section line to access that lot when she gets there, but there's no formal agreements in place or anything along those lines. So if that is the access that she wants to take, if she wants to go down that section line to get to Lot 4, she would have to show proof of the proper access easements and legal access to do it that way prior to submittal of the minor plat. And if this layout plat is approved, she would then go to the minor platting process. So this is just the first step in the platting process used to identify these issues. So staff is recommending approval of the layout plat with 14 conditions.
Any questions for staff?
Go ahead.
Yeah, what's the source of water to the existing house?
As I understand it, there's a well out there. I spoke with the surveyor about it. He actually has it identified right here. There's a well right here. He stated that he believes that's a shared well between the house and, the way he identified it is he was not certain if there was a septic system serving this at what he identifies as a house right here. He said he does know that she anticipates having that be a residence. So he said he wasn't sure if this well would then become a shared well between the two of them, but there is a well out there.
There's a lot of not sure on this property.
That's correct. There is a lot of not sure.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Cassie, so the purpose of this is to sell off the outlots?
Correct. The way the surveyor described it is her plan, the way he understands it, is to keep Lot 3, which has the existing residence, and then sell the rest of them.
Because Lot 2 is the one with the sheds?
Yes.
And then the sheds would either be pulled back to 3 or permitted as accessory structures
Right.
on that?
Right,
Okay.
yep.
And the same with the studio?
Yes.
Okay.
And those sheds, the surveyor did say too that he didn't know if she was planning on, this is that studio accessory structure thing. And those are those sheds.
Oh.
So he had stated that he wasn't sure if she would just be taking down the sheds, if she wanted to keep the sheds. He didn't know her plan for those. But if she does anticipate keeping them, they would be accessory structures, so.
Okay.
So is it on the plat or the deed that, is it lot number 4 needs a Forest Service easement? Is
Yes.
it on there, so if someone buys that they know that it needs an easement from the Forest Service?
It would need an easement from the Forest Service before they could even go through with a minor plat. I put that as a condition, that they have to provide legal access, which would mean that they would have to get the easement from
What
the
if they
Forest
couldn't?
Service. Then they would have to get access somewhere else.
Okay, because it's very hard to get Forest Service access.
And it takes a long time.
That's what I'm saying on this
That's what we talked
property.
about.
Yep,
So,
yep. It takes quite some time. And the surveyor said that he has had that conversation with her, but he submitted it the way that she requested.
well, he keeps saying, I think, that he would speak with the applicant on a lot of the stuff that they're moving forward with.
There's a lot of unknowns. With a layout plat, it's really meant to identify the issues that could arise with a layout plat. There's a lot of them in this situation. The surveyor's aware of it. He knew that there would be some issues that would arise with this. He's been working with her for quite some time. And it kind of just came down to submitting what she requested and seeing what kind of conditions we would put on it.
And then she will have basically an outline of what's going to be required before she can even do it.
Right.
Is that Forest Service property to the south of it as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Don't we usually, doesn't it make more sense when you come up here to talk with you guys, get a lot of this done, and then bring it forward than it is to, am I missing the process here? PJ?
Again, kind of similar to what Commissioner Marsh says, we absolutely agree, but that hasn't been the direction from the Planning Commission or the board the last few years. It has been to help the individual get through this process, and then whatever staff has to do in the extra time afterwards to handle it. That's been the direction.
That's a lot. I mean, helping is fine, but actually doing all this for somebody, you know, they need to hire someone to make sure all this is specified before they come here to a certain extent, because, man, that's a lot of work for you guys.
PJ,
And that's
has made
only
that
one
very
client,
well
ma'am.
Clear to me. Maybe we need to
So-
talk about this later.
I put it on staff comments for later.
Yeah, because the process needs to change somewhat, so it's on the applicant, not on the planning staff. If they need help, don't get me wrong, you need help, because you've never been through it. Show them the things they need to get done, have them go do it, then bring this back to us, instead of the other way around, and then now send it back again and again to make sure it's right.
And this is one client, we're usually working with 50 at a time.
Yeah, and I understand that, but part of it is for you to tell us what, not just planning commission, for you to tell us what you need to have done to move forward to make it not only easier on the staff, because, you know, you do have a job there to help people, but to move it forward so both sides, this planning commission and you and the applicant all have an understanding of what they have to do.
Yep, and we put it on for staff for further discussion later in the meeting.
Yeah, but you're adding to the issue by adding more stuff before you come in for them to do when it should be done, I believe, before it gets here with all these conditions.
Right.
We're not disputing that.
Okay.
I've been asking PJ quite a bit of questions concerning that
Okay.
line, and that's why it's on our topic later. when
Okay,
it
sorry,
comes
I
to
didn't
us
know
to
it
talk
was, sorry. Okay.
All right, so any further questions for staff? Anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve layout plat PL 17-21 with 14 conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
No,
All right.
thank you.
Move on to 22.
Thanks for bringing this up. Okay, next item is item 22, rezone 1708, to rezone 5.64 acres from light industrial to suburban residential. And the applicant is R. Alfred and Paige Dial, and one of the applicants is in the audience today. This was already once before the Board of Commissioners to put a single-family residence on the property on the east side. It is currently, as you know, zoned light industrial. A building permit for a residence is not allowed in light industrial, only for a caretaker's residence with the operation on the same property. The applicant also applied for the rezone shortly after the building permit, and again, the Board of Commissioners did approve that the building permit be approved prior to the rezone taking place. Right now, as it exists, Lot 3, which is on the east side, is currently light industrial. Let me get to that there. The one on the west is also light industrial. There is, again, that building permit just approved for the single-family residence. It is within the Box Elders plating jurisdiction, and the applicant has indicated that he is looking to subdivide both of these properties in the future. Lot 4 to the west, again, is currently zoned light industrial district. The future land use for both is concurrent with the applicant's request, which is suburban residential. Therefore, he did not need to apply for a comprehensive plan amendment at this time. Requests for comment were sent out. There were no items of significance that came back. The city of Box Elder and our communication is aware of the applicant's request or proposed request to subdivide the properties in the future. There is a petition also signed that the applicant had from some of the surrounding landowners that was signed on, handed in on August 1st, 2017. That is included in your packets. The applicant's request is in conformity with the Pennington County Comprehensive Plan, and within a quarter mile of existing Lot 3 and 4, there are over 50 stick-built and mobile home residences located on the existing private lots or within mobile home parks. Therefore, it appears the applicant's requested rezone for the proposed residential land use is in harmony with residential zoning, more in harmony with residential zoning than industrial zoning, and therefore staff would recommend approval of rezone 1708.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, can I ask a question? I see that there is some buildings on the lot to the north and to the west that's zoned light industrial. Can you comment on the nature of those businesses, or?
So the one directly to the north, right at the junction of Fish and Country, I believe, is a residential lot from Mr. Fish, at least last I heard. Then the one just south to the west, south and west of Fish Drive is a commercial operation. We are finding more out about that. There was a complaint filed very recently on that property. And
So you're saying that the one that's gray is actually a residence?
no, there is a commercial operation on there that we understand, and that's what the applicant was trying to do, was trying to get the residents approved on
So
Lot
is-
3 because of the operation on this other lot, and he couldn't do that.
So this is the applicant's business? No?
Not sure who owns it at this time. I know the applicant owns the lot.
Someone's shaking, somebody seems to know something, yeah? Okay.
He
All
just
right.
purchased at least 3 of the 4 lots recently.
Okay.
All right, any further questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant here to speak?
I think he.
And just one note about rezones, there are a yes or no, there are no conditions on rezones.
My name is Al Dial, and I'm the owner of lots 3 and 4, with option to purchase lots 1 and 2 as soon as 3 and 4 pays off. So technically, my contract encumbers all 4 lots. The gray structure in the middle, that is a large shop facility. Some of you may remember Fish Garbage Service. It was at this location, and that was their garage to service their trucks. It will be my shop for my toys and hot rods. So there's no commercial venture at this time. My son also runs a concrete business. A little later on, I may sell that to him. That's why I'm not looking to rezone that at this time. The lots below, which is 3 and 4, they originally were residential. Due to the use that was placed on those lots when Fish owned it, it was rezoned to industrial. I was surprised that it didn't automatically revert when that went away, but it doesn't, and therefore I got to change it. If you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Al?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the lot to the west is low-density
Yes.
residential?
No, it originally was, this property before Fish bought it was one piece, and it was a horse property. And then Fish bought it due to the use that they were using it for fish garbage. The county required that got split up, it got platted off, and light industrial got placed on all of the area below. Where you see the house to the west, Lot 4, correct?
Lot 4.
Lot 4, that was the caretaker's facility at the time that overseen the shop operations. So technically, it's non-conforming now because it is a house and that operation no longer exists. So part of, not only will it fix my issues where I'm building a house, but it will make that legally conforming once that's changed back to residential. But all of it originally was residential, and that building down there was for horses and livestock.
And you had all the neighbors sign that they were in agreement beforehand.
I would not say all of the neighbors. My wife went out and she visited everybody she could visit, and those are on the plat type deal where their properties that they own are. There were, she told me 3 or 4 that she couldn't get a hold of, wasn't there, lived somewhere else, etc. Also, there was There was one that said they were not in favor. That would be the Geesey property where the Buffalo was. And she said she merely wasn't in favor because her sons next door had industrial, and it would probably be favorable to them to keep the industrial. But that was the only no that we got from everybody we visited with. But I wouldn't say she got to them all. Probably 95% though.
Any further questions?
You have a contract for deed on lots 1 and 2 in the
Yes.
front? Okay.
It's just an order of sequence purchase, so technically I don't purchase the last 2 until the first 2 pay off.
Okay.
Any further questions? All right, thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience like to speak on this item? All right, I don't see anyone else who wants to speak on the item. I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of rezone 1708.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, that carries us on to the next item.
Item 23 is conditional use permit 1728 to allow for 3 existing signs to be relocated on the subject property and allow for the 3 existing signs to be located within 1,500 feet of residential zoning dwelling district, and to allow for the 3 signs to be located closer to each other than the requirement of that no sign shall be located closer than 1,500 feet from all other signs in a highway service district. So there's a lot of different parts of the zoning ordinance that they're looking to do here. I understand, because I wasn't here the first time that this was up, and I know this was continued because some of the concern about the V-shaped sign. For us, and I have a copy of our sign ordinance, or our sign application, if anybody would like to see it. We consider this one structure because it shares the same support structure, so that's why we call it one sign. There are different numbers from Lamar on there, but that's their catalog system, not ours. So essentially, what the applicant is looking to do, in our understanding, is change what's existing, which is on the top right, A, B, and C, and to take down the wooden supports and put up new metal supports, not to increase the face size of each sign, and then to relocate them sparser on the property, which would be the bottom right. They still won't meet the requirement for space between them. They will be within 1,500 feet of residential zoning districts, and in our sign ordinance is allowed through the conditional use permits. And this does get reviewed every year, or not every year, but it will be reviewed in 1 year. The applicant also had a similar request approved on the property directly to the north, which would be 2 of 3, the purple to the north. The applicant did provide some additional photographs. This is that V-shaped sign, I believe, that's in question. I'll just go through the photos that he gave us. This one is too close to a lot line and will be moved into compliance with the zoning ordinance.
So the 3, are these the signs here, PJ? Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones from Google applied from
And those
from the
are,
applicant.
the applicant is Lamar, or?
No. The applicant is Ken Nash on behalf of Mr. Pankratz, and Mr. Nash is in the audience today.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am?
but the new signs will be one-sided, or we don't know?
We don't know until they apply.
Okay.
We have no indication that the single sides are going to go double or that the V is going to go single. We don't know.
All we know is that they're going to get rid of the wooden structures and put up metal poles and upgrade the signage.
And create the distance between them, greater
Are they
distance.
going to be LED or just wood?
Right now, if they were to be lit, that would require a separate conditional use permit requirement. As of, from what we understand, that's not any of the request.
That'll be addressed in the sign permit.
And they own the,
It would also have to be addressed through a conditional use permit if it's going to be lit within a certain number of feet from a residential lot. Right now, we have no indication that they're going to be lit.
and they own the properties where these signs,
They do, and they're also in the platting process of subdividing a portion of this property off, but the current landowner is going to remain in control of these signs on his new proposed unplatted lot.
Once you walk through that one. Any further questions for staff?
I'm interested in the language it's used as saying relocated, but it does sound like they're going to tear out the old ones and replace rather than relocate.
In our world, once those supports come down, they never existed. So any legal non-conforming status that they have, like that one sign A on the top right, which is too close to a lot line, the minute that comes down, all legal non-conforming status is lost and it has to start over again. So once all of those support structures for the A, B, and C come down, they're going to relocate A to be in compliance with the setbacks. B, on the top left, it looks like it's going to become C on the far east side. And lot C in the center, or item C in the center, which is B on the bottom right, I don't know, is that moving at all? Maybe just a couple feet, but I don't think much more than that. So to us, that's relocating. Those two, I mean, they're not going to be one exactly where they were. They're going to be moved a little bit.
Okay, but the height and all that you said and what it's going to look like comes in when?
So the height, so there's, and I can pass out our sign permit application. I don't think any of you have probably ever seen that, but that's all addressed when he has to apply for the sign permit, and he'd have to apply for 3 of them.
And does that
Minimum.
come back, does that come back to us again?
Sign permits do not. No, those are done administratively, just like a building permit would be.
But they have to conform to what we already have. If it's changed, then they have to come back?
They have to comply with the ordinance.
And what is it? Okay, I need to see
Yeah,
that.
so there are height restrictions, there's face restrictions, that kind of thing.
I think-
Like the size, square footage.
I think I'm getting I'm kind of catching what's going on. If they take these down, they don't necessarily have to put them up in the same size. They could actually change the size with the size of the facing.
Yeah, condition 7 and 8 address those.
Yep, they can't go outside of the existing ordinance.
Oh, okay, so they're not gonna be allowed to be
So
larger.
tell me, what size sign can you build to our ordinance standards? What's the biggest you can build?
250 square feet.
Oh, I'd have to pull that up and see. Hold on. Those would be more like the billboards on the sides of the highways. That also requires some other thing. Let me pull that one up, sorry.
You can
that's a-
build them as big as those?
No, but that's, to answer your question, that's how big they can get.
Yeah, signs can get,
Sorry, our sign ordinance is pretty
That's what I'm saying.
long, so hold on.
These signs, they have a restrictive size.
I think it's, I have an idea, but I don't want to speak out of turn and tell you what it is.
You're gonna have 3 in a row, is that?
Maximum display area of any sign located adjacent to 2 or more, 250 square feet on each face,
What are they now?
that or under.
One's 26 by 8, one's 30 by 8, one's 26 by 8. So one's 320 square feet, and the other ones would be 250, a little bit less.
So is there any site
400 feet.
issue in there or anything on those 3 signs being by each other? On that curve or anything there?
The DOT didn't say anything about that.
But they haven't put the same size of the signs up yet, have they? They just can't be over 250 feet.
250 square feet on each side, the maximum display area of an off-premise sign located on an interstate, well, that would be 400 square feet, but. One thing to note here is, the 3 signs that are there, if the conditional use permit doesn't get approved, they're gonna stay there. There's nothing that we do take them down right now.
Right,
So,
that's why you were talking about nonconformity and
yes,
means they are grandfathered in.
correct.
Essentially, what we're approving is the variance to the distance between them, right?
They're not a variance, but
Well,
to allow for them not to meet
allow
the,
for them to be less than 1,500 feet apart.
and also within 1,500 feet of a residential zoning district. Yep.
The sign structure and the sign stuff is not, really doesn't pertain to this CUP. Would be part of the sign permit process, right?
Yeah, it's just an addition. Usually they're
it's an
not
addition to,
improving
but-
it as much. Yeah.
But essentially what we're approving is the spacing and the distance between.
Yes,
So they're off-premise signs, so they're advertising for other businesses besides what's on that property.
correct.
Can they do that legally?
Yes. You're talking about Reed versus Gilbert, the Supreme Court case? Yeah.
We heard a lot about this at city council, about all the sign stuff. That's why I don't want to have us,
Yep, there's been a lot, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been a lot of court cases challenging that. As long as our staff continues to enforce as far as size, location, and whether it's lit or not, we're good. But we stay away from content.
not anything to do with off premises or on premises signs? Because I thought you couldn't legally, maybe because you're grandfathered in, but after that,
My,
the off premise,
since the original Supreme Court case, and again, I'm not the lawyer, but my understanding is that there's been challenges against that, and those apply more to personal signs than commercial signs.
okay. You say so.
Oh, that's right, Angela knows probably most of
You
it, yeah.
Do you know anything about that, Mr. Nash or Michelle? About off-premise signs being on?
Michelle Hoffman, State's Attorney's Office. Actually, Angela Shute recently looked at that issue. That's not an issue I've personally looked at.
Okay.
But based upon the limited communications I've had with Ms. Shute as well as PJ, I don't think the commercial content of these signs are a concern.
Okay.
Go ahead, Cassie.
So PJ, I'm relatively new here, and so I just want to understand this. So, in layman's terms here, the way I got this in my head is that, and please, correct me if this isn't quite right, but these signs are legal non-conforming because they obviously don't conform to the ordinance, the current ordinance. And the expectation in general is that when signs are taken down or want to be modified in one fashion or another, then they lose their legal non-conforming status. In other words, they lose their grandfather status because they've been changed or modified or removed or something.
That is absolutely correct. However, they can change the face of the sign,
Yes.
the message anytime they want.
That's right, yes, of
Correct.
course.
But otherwise, everything you
And so
said is
what
correct.
we're being asked to do here is to allow for them to maintain their so-called grandfathered status with rebuilding them and moving them.
They wouldn't have to maintain the grandfather status. The minute they take those structures down, that grandfather status is lost.
Yes.
And so
So
then
they're-
they rely upon the conditional use permit to stay legally non-conforming.
No.
No?
So once what they're asking for is to take the three signs that are there now, basically as if we're starting from zero, and then put them in the bottom right location A, B, and C.
Right?
And that's what the conditional use permit is allowing.
But still, they don't meet our ordinances.
They would with the new locations. That's what they're trying to
I
do.
thought the ordinance was, we had to require 1,500 feet between signs.
Yeah, except for the 1,500 feet within the residential, or to a residential, and 1,500 feet between. But all that legal non-conforming stuff would be zeroed out. It wouldn't exist, they wouldn't have that anymore.
But the reason that they will still not meet the ordinance in terms of the 1,500 feet between and from the residential is because of this conditional use permit that allows that.
Correct. If you were to allow that, then they could do it.
Right.
Is there anything in here that requires the removal of the original signs?
Requires the removal.
So, again, back to it's calling vote,
Oh, I see. So it doesn't have-
relocating, but they're completely changing the structure, building new signs. But what is in here that says that the old signs have to come out as well?
Well, to allow for 3 existing signs to be moved, the way it was requested. So you couldn't have 6. Is that what you're thinking?
Right,
Yeah.
but
So the request is to allow for 3 existing signs to be relocated on the subject property.
so you can relocate non-conforming signs, and then it doesn't seem to be relocating, as I mentioned earlier. I find that confusing.
Yep, no, I understand what you're saying. So the message we're trying to get across is there's 3 signs now, and they want to keep 3 signs on there and just spread them apart and improve the structure.
And make it so it's, right, I was gonna say, improve the structure so there's not any loose wood or anything that can, if somebody's walking by or something.
Basically, they have 3 signs that are non-conforming. The minute they touch those or take those structures down, they lose their status of grandfathering, like Kathy said. Then they want to go into our ordinance and ask you for a conditional use permit to put 3 different signs and ask for a conditional use permit because in 1,500 feet, you cannot have that many signs in residential or by residential, if I'm correct.
You couldn't have one, any one, but yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're asking, the conditional use is to put 3 new ones and take out the grandfather.
It sounds like
Which
it's
would automatically
implied,
do.
it's implied that the originals have to go as well, but I don't see that language in here.
But we
It said
can,
you say locate, relocate, except it's really a whole new structure.
Yes, sir.
okay,
It's
You just
kind
want
of
to make
like
sure
you're,
that there's not 6.
right.
right, no, I get that.
It's like you're blending the non-conforming with the new permit when
Okay.
really they're entirely distinct from each
Starting
other.
over.
I see that, yep, I see that.
So basically, they're taking down 3 PJ and the other 3 are coming up into a conditional use permit.
Correct,
If
that's what
allowed.
we understand, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Or if we don't do anything, they can keep the other 3 up and they're fine. Or 2.
Correct.
2 or 3?
3.
3, okay.
3. Yep.
All right, any further questions for staff? Yep, no, okay.
Did you want to add a condition that they be removed? Normally, we would do something called a removal permit, but there were no, because they're legal non-conforming, there was no permit that we have that put them there in the first place. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's as much as I can say about the way that seems to me, that for them to get this new permit, we'd have to know that they're removing the old ones. Like, removing the old ones is what allows them to build the next 3.
So the condition would be if we agree today that the other 3 non-conforming are coming down.
Yep.
Yep.
Are you thinking about that one or what?
Well, I'm thinking that the applicant, I don't want to speak for Mr. Nash, but they may want to keep the signs up when they apply for the new sign permits and then take them down. I don't know what their process is going to be.
Well, the bottom line
But there can't be
is-
more than 3 at any one time on that property.
Maybe that's the way you just word it, that there can't be any more than 3 at any one time on that piece of property. That way we don't have to worry about any, configuring.
Conformity and non-conforming.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am, go ahead, Lori.
the other thing is, shouldn't it say in this conditional use permit that the signs are going to be located closer than 1,500 feet? It doesn't say that anywhere in the conditional use permit. You know, your drawing shows they're about 1,200 foot from each other. Shouldn't that be stated in the conditional permit, conditional use permit? That the signs are located closer than 1,500 feet to each other and something about they're closer to a residence?
Well, the request is to do that with, and then the conditions allow the request.
Okay,
But we can put that in the conditions.
just to make it clear.
If it helps, absolutely, we could.
I-
But that was the original request, and to get to that request, here's the conditions for that request.
Okay.
But whatever you guys are comfortable with.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chair, I do.
Go ahead, Rich.
Item E, under the general description, indicates that,
Where are you?
page 3 of 7, indicates that essentially 3 of 3, that parcel where the subject signs are located, is being proposed to be subdivided. And I don't remember how that was proposed to be subdivided. Do you have, can you sketch on there quick on?
Yeah, I will do my attempt here. So 3 of 3, which is the one you're talking about right
Yep.
there. And I may be off by a couple hundred feet on each one of these, but essentially something like that. This would be platted, and this would be unplatted. And then there would be an access easement here. So you'd have one sign here, approximately one sign here, and one sign here. And Mr. Pencratz is going to maintain ownership of the unplatted portion. Yep, I got the
Okay.
nod from the applicant, so.
Rough, but we're good. Any other questions for PJ? All right, seeing none, would the applicant like to speak? Oh, good. Anyone else in the audience like to comment on this item?
I'll dial. Had a lot of experience with signs in the 7 years I spent with Box Elder and 6 as mayor. As if you're aware, as you go out on the interstate, there's many out there. It is the overwhelming public request that the amount of signs be reduced. If not reduced, at least controlled. I would encourage you, as you move along, to put language in to very well stipulate that the number of sign faces cannot increase. We had 2 replacements in the city, which each had one single face on them. When they got done, they have 4, all on one metal structure. Metal structures will support a lot more weight and a lot more signs. So you got to beware as you change them over that you don't make the problem worse. And I would encourage you to limit the sign faces, not only the 3 locations.
Good idea.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just as a point, item 7 says they can't go over 250 square feet for a face.
On
Many
each
times.
face. It says on each face.
Correct, so if you have a V shape, each one's allowed to be 250, that's correct.
Do we have anywhere that says how many total faces? Because I know that was kind of the conversation when we were talking about the V. You said it's understood it's 2 faces, but obviously some of us didn't
Sure.
recognize it was 2 faces. As, should we put that, I think that's probably a good point that we put that in there. No more than, they're replacing 1, 2, 3, 4 faces technically, so that there's no more than 4 faces. 3 signs, no more than 4 faces.
Well, I mean, realistically, because of the sign locations, I mean, you're not going to put signage on the south side, because who are you advertising for, too? I mean, the sign's going to either go, it's going to be angled so that you can see it. The most, I think, not being a sign expert, but you could put 2 faces on each of those signs so you can see it from the eastbound and the westbound traffic, right, on the divided 4?
You could on C and, on proposed C and B. On A, that one's up against campground.
So you couldn't put a face?
This would be the furthest one to the.
But couldn't you angle it? Couldn't you angle a new sign so you could put 2 faces on it? At the most, it looks like you get 6.
We've seen people try everything, and
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
possibility,
so-
yep.
Most of the time in the city, they gave us pictures of the signs they were gonna put back up there. Is there no picture or any idea what kind of sign you guys are putting back up there?
I mean, if you wanted to be real restrictive, you could put the language in here that it's limited at 3 faces.
If you,
And legally, could you do that?
to limit it to 3 faces?
Well, we can put
Total?
whatever we want to in the conditions, right?
Well, you could, there is a limit in the ordinance, they can't have more than 2 sides.
Okay, but but can't we in a because of the location and our concern for aesthetics, can't we just say it's only 3?
So you basically are, I think maybe if you're looking to do that, maybe use the terminology of make them one-sided signs?
Mm-hmm.
I guess my bottom line is if I can't, I want to see the signs that are going to go up there before I vote on it. I don't want to just say we're going to put 3 more signs up there. Because I'm with Al, we had a lot of people with signs and clutter and different stuff. And I understand they have 3 there now, but I want to see how big they are and what they're going to look like. And they might be even aesthetically a lot better looking than the 3 that are there, but I'd like to see pictures of what they're going to put up there and how they're going to put it up.
That's probably a good decision. Go
You
ahead.
know, speaking from someone that drives by these signs nearly every day on my way into Rapid City and back, I think it's, even it's conceivable that there could be a way of getting 2 faces on there that, so I mean, personally, I'm bothered by the fact that we really should only have 2 signs on this property, considering its length. And so I'm bothered by the fact that there's even, the recommendation is for 3 signs. I mean, I agree that the whole point of, in my understanding, anyway, the point of the ordinance and the rule about how when you modify these signs, you lose that grandfathered status, is to slowly reduce the density of signs over time. And of course, part of that is to upgrade the sign itself. But I think that short of, denying this recommendation, and only allowing 2 signs, the next best thing is to specify that each sign can only have 1 face.
Any further discussion? Any other questions? Sonny, you gonna say something?
I'll just agree with that I would recommend that this be limited to 2 signs. That's how I feel.
Mr. Chair, and my comment is, we're kind of assuming they're going to look better, but they might not. If there's 6 faces and other stuff hanging on them, and they're lighted, and maybe we would just rather have the 4 signs, 4 faces that are there now.
Maybe we should continue it and see if they can bring us back some pictures or something to convince us that, they need 3 signs, or maybe they could do it on 2.
Maybe they could get by with two-faced signs.
Yep.
All right, I'm open to a motion.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Nash? Okay.
Well,
I'll make a motion to continue
all right,
to the next meeting. Give you enough time, sir? Okay.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, that carries us back to, is that 20?
20. You have to take it from the table.
All right, so.
Motion to take the, what item was it, 20?
20.
From the table.
Motion. And a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion second to bring item 20 back from the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right,
Mr. Chair, could I maybe preface that with, I parked in a place that I can only park for 2 hours. Could we take a short break?
yes, let's take a 5-minute recess so we can change parking for those who need to. All right,
Did you guys vote on the first motion?
Continue?
to continue the last one?
The.
To
here,
untable
item-
it?
Yes.
I
Yes.
second.
She second.
All in
and
favor,
All in
say
favor,
aye.
signify
Okay,
signify by saying aye.
separate.
Okay. And we're 5-minute recess for those who need to move vehicles. Convene.
Thank you.
And we are back on to item 20. It has been untabled and we're there. So PJ, you were supposed to get us some possible language here.
Oh, yeah. So just real quick, item 20 is minor plan unit development 1705. So the proposed language for condition number 18. What we've come up with, and we've consulted state's attorney's office on this, or representative, here we go, that the setbacks for Lot 3, Block 4 of Sunset Ranch be 25 feet from all property lines, with the exception of the parameters of the garage as shown on COBP 17-0092.
Okay.
Oh, I have 9-2. Sorry, let's change that, 0090.
0090. Okay. Question, just to make sure, when I read this, that means everything else has to come into compliance before he can continue? Is that correct?
Like his sheds and stuff have to comply before he moves forward on this?
Yeah, planning director by ordinance cannot approve any building permit if there's a violation on the property.
Okay. I just want to make that clear for those in the audience too.
Yep.
All right, so we have rewording. Oh, go ahead.
But just to clarify, that building permit in question was approved because the applicant said it was going to be 25 feet from the property line. So that's not going to get held up because it's already been approved. So hopefully they're going to correct that, but all those sheds have to move.
Right.
Okay.
So do we need to do anything to correct that from our end? I mean, is there anything we can do or just make sure?
Move that to assure that they're moved and done right.
Okay.
We'll have the ordinance officer back out there to check for the sheds. And if they are by size need to be permitted, which it sounds like they're over 144, then they'll have to be permitted also.
Okay. All right, so we know what the new wording is, and if there's not any further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the CUP with amended text for item 18.
Just to clarify, it's a
Yeah.
PUD.
It's a PUD.
PUD.
Okay. CUP, right.
There's a
UD.
motion.
Yeah. For a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. No, seeing no further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Here's with the neighbors, and sir, if in 1 year on complaint basis, this can be unapproved if all these conditions and things haven't been met. So remember that they can complain if you're not meeting those conditions and not doing things right. So you want to take pictures and different things to make sure that you are complying, and then when you come back, in case there's a complaint, that you have that recorded, okay?
All right, I think that then carries us to item 24.
Item 24, County Board Report. The Board of Commissioners will hear the August 14, 2017 Planning Commission's recommendations at their Tuesday, September 5th, 2017 meeting.
All right, item 25, items from the public. Everyone from the public who have anything they'd like to add today, come on up.
Al Dial. You said you were going to discuss this preliminary plat process. I encourage this board to not get the preliminary plat process too convoluted. The whole purpose of that is to merely, you can even hand sketch a preliminary plat, and it's to come in and see what this board would require before you start hiring professionals at large sums of money for surveyors, et cetera, to go out and draw different property boundaries, potentially access rights and easements, et cetera. So that preliminary process is merely an item to get everything down on a piece of paper, what will be required for the final plat as it comes back. So yeah, it's kind of a pain for staff as well as the public to go through that, but there has to be some inexpensive way of doing it. Otherwise, you know, a person could go out and spend many thousands of dollars to get all the information you want, and you bring it in, and what if this board don't approve it? Now you've spent a lot of money and have to go back and start over. So I encourage you to keep it simple.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, any other members of the audience like to speak? Seeing none, let's move on to item 26.
Items from staff, item 26. We do have a couple items. One is Matrix Design Group, the company that is updating our comprehensive plan and looking at our zoning ordinances and making recommendations on them, will be here at the end of September. They're looking at September 25th, 26th, and 27th. Normally, it's a Tuesday through Thursday. This one's a Monday through Wednesday. The first, there are, for those who don't know, there's a series of 5 meetings, 5 visits, 3 meetings each visit. They've already done 2 sets, and that was basically for them to understand kind of how the county's feeling, what the public is thinking, and to set a kind of a mission statement and a direction. The meetings that are going to start in September are about land use, changing zoning, and probably the most important meetings to be at, because that's what the comprehensive plan is all about. So if you can get the word out, help us get the word out, we'd appreciate it. As far as locations, it's either the first one of them will either be in Hill City or Keystone. Second will be somewhere in Rapid, probably at the extent, over by Waikiki, the college that's out there. I can't remember what that one is.
Christie Center.
Thank you. And then the other one will probably be in New Underwood at their city hall if they can get it approved for us. We've had 2 in Wall, 1 in Keystone, 1 in Hill City, and 2 in Rapid so far.
And these are evening meetings?
It's usually 6 to 8 unless they
Okay,
are going to
6 to
change
8.
anything. Yep.
Has anybody complained about the process? About how they go through the process here, through the preliminary plat or anything else?
Oh, going back to Mr. Dial's
Yeah,
comment.
through the matrix, some of those comments, anything to that comment?
I don't know about complaints. No. There's staff concerns, but other than that, I can't think of any complaints about that process. People have showed up about tiny homes, about floodplain, about septics, building codes, or that kind of stuff.
Okay,
Yep.
not going through the process?
Not specifically that.
Okay.
Do you find that most people that come to these meetings have their own agenda, singular issue?
You're asking an opinion?
Yes.
You just answered the question.
Got it.
75% I would say do, 25 probably don't, yeah. But those that do come in with a single item that draws them there, if that's all it takes to get them into the meeting, great. Because then, at least the people that I know that have been there for one item, then they do comment on the other items that come up. And it's good to have their input and their perspective as well. So at least that gets them there, and then they do comment on broader items.
So when the meetings are advertised, are you advertising, I mean, you're advertising this comprehensive plan meeting and this is kind of what we're doing, but that may not mean anything to a lot of people, and I'm wondering if you list like, these are topics that we're going to be talking about at this meeting, or do you do that already?
Yep, that's what Matrix's publicity people are working on right now. After the last meetings, Rick, who's our representative, and I could discuss that. And he kind of jokingly said, well, say we're going to raise taxes, and that'll get everybody there. But close to that is land use. And that's how they're going to advertise it, is the use of the land, and land use may be changing. However they wordsmith it through their department, because it could have a big impact. And that's what our concern is with this comprehensive plan, why we have an issue with it. It's old and it's not working for us anymore. And, we should have highway service corridors in certain areas that are zoned suburban residential or vice versa. We have a whole section of the county that's general ag with future land uses, plan unit development sensitive. It's just not working, which is why, happily, the Board of Commissioners agreed to have this process done. They are looking to have it done by June of next year, well, at least proposed by June of next year.
PJ, for the one out in New Underwood, so you said that's not secured yet, or?
Not secured yet.
Have you already talked to them out there, just to find out?
Sent an email to her. I know she's one person that does about 4 different departments' jobs. We've worked with her in the past with plats and stuff, so if I don't hear from her by this afternoon, I was going to call her.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. All right, anything else?
Yeah, that was the first part.
First part.
That was the first thing. The second item, we did want to talk about a little bit. I know Travis and I have had these discussions when he comes into the office. With when new planning commissioners come in, there's always a different perspective. And that's fine. We appreciate that. I guess my question is, and I don't know if you can answer this, right now, we take in a lot of applications that are incomplete. We do, because we're trying to help the applicants. A lot of them are coming in from Wall or from the west side over, the Wyoming border, and we don't want them to have to drive all the way back. We do have areas of our office dedicated to applications that are not complete because the applicant is working on something, and we're going to stay in contact with them to get more information in. I know other agencies in the planning profession do not accept anything other than a complete application. But that has not been the directive from the Planning Commission or the board, at least for the last 4 years that I know of, or even prior to that. There's even been a process that was that was approved by the Board of Commissioners years ago for the previous director. And it's basically a memorandum of understanding with people who would normally need a conditional use permit for something. Again, $370, 4 to 6 weeks time limit, where we write a memo, they sign and notarize it, and it allows them X amount of time to come into compliance, or then they have to get the conditional use permit with all the penalty fees and the late charges and go through the whole process. It's not money that's coming into the county, but it was be helpful to the citizens. So we've continued that practice. We've kind of broadened it a little bit to help people. It does create a lot of extra time for us, a lot of extra follow-up. We are touching the documents more than once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. We have some building permits that get applied for and then we never see them again. We have some sitting from 2014. So there is some discussion with this new zoning ordinance that we put a time limit on building permit applications that if they're not approved by a certain time for a good reason, then they just expire. I guess I can touch on the platting process. The only staff concern with, I think what Mr. Dial was talking about was referring to was the layout plat. Because you don't necessarily need a registered professional engineer to submit a layout plat. I mean, we haven't had one sent in on a napkin yet, but we would not accept it. We'd probably make a copy of it on a piece of paper, but It allows the people to come in and say, here's what I want to do, and then we come back and say, if that's what you want to do, here's what you need to do. It's always better to have a registered land surveyor prior, because there's a lot of things that landowners don't know that they're getting into, and they're usually surprised by the number of conditions with a layout plat. The only part of the only staff concern, and I think I can speak for everybody who works on them, is they are again, our office isn't in the business to make money. We don't even break even. Layout plats are $100. We spend more time on layout plats than any other plats that we do. And we could spend 7, 8 hours on one layout plat over the course of 6 weeks. Come before you, present it, then it goes to the board, we gotta present it again, and then say it gets approved. And for $100, that applicant got all that extra time on the back of the taxpayers, not paying for the extra time, and then may never come in for the minor plat and never do anything with it. So what we are looking at doing is changing some of the fee structure, not changing the process of how to plat your property, but the fee structure to maybe be able to capture some more of that money up front. Because basically a layout plat to a minor plat, there's not much difference. Usually things aren't changing.
So do they need help can they get it professionally and not have to do it through the staff if you just tell them what the process is? Or does the staff have to show them step by step every part of the layout plat? It's not listed, it's not something simple that somebody could go through. Some people are never going to be able to do it, I understand that. And some people, they're just having you do these things with them where, they could have somebody else be helping them.
It is listed, it's in our subdivision regulations, and also if you match that with the zoning ordinance, but a lot of people, they don't understand it. So we usually recommend that they have a meeting with us even prior to applying, so that they're fully aware of what they're coming into.
Right.
And one of the things that we tell people is, we understand that this is confusing. You may do this once in your life, we do it 5 times a day. So
And
you
it
get
is
that.
confusing, even if you've been through the process, it is confusing. So I understand they need your help, but how do we simplify the process for them, so by the time they get here, we're not spending a lot of extra, and I don't want to say that mean, because we're here to help no matter what. Because even through the process, and people already went through the planning commission, I'm still having to go meet with them and showing some of the process. So you never really fully get the whole process and know everything about what you're supposed to do. But if the planning commission could somewhat, people that have been through the process here, show them how to do it and make it a lot easier, I don't know what we could do different. So we could help them through that process without having one person spend 10 hours each time and they go, how many people come through your office? Hundreds. So they're not having enough time to do everything they need to do as well. So I don't know how to make that a difference and still help the public in a way that would be helpful.
Mr. Chair,
Lori?
is there any way to develop a checklist or something that you could give to clients? And then my second question would be, are you saying to us that based on your staff levels and your budget that you're getting to the point where you can't provide this service?
Not that we can't provide the service. We have 8 people in our office. Jerry's an administrative assistant, so she reviews all the staff reports and then takes care of a lot of other stuff. Mike is our ordinance officer who's out of the office most of the time. TJ is our septic ordinance, or septic
So you're down to
environmental
5.
planner. So of those 8, you're really looking at 5. And Frank, who is a new employee, he works on the environmental side and the planning side, but basically his job is operating permits and addressing, and then we'll write staff reports.
Down to 4.
And if you think of me, I'm mostly out of the office with meetings or meeting with people. And then there's also people up at the front counter where if someone comes up the front counter, you don't know if you're up there for 10 minutes or 2.5 hours, which does happen. And that's a huge chunk of a day gone. So
Maybe that needs to be, because I don't think, whether you're a planning commissioner or a commissioner, you know how many people go through that office and how many applications. That needs to be brought forward in a way so we have an understanding, because you keep saying, I'm short, and we can't do all this, and we can't do all that, but I haven't seen how many applications you go through. I haven't seen, like, Cassie might go through 100, Cassie might go through 10. What are you saying is too much, and how do you compare that to other places that, have planning departments? I mean, how do you do a comparable and then get us to understand that? Because as a commissioner, I haven't understood it, and I've been in here, 2.5 years, about how, I understand you keep saying you're understaffed, but why, and where, and how?
Yep. And the reason you haven't seen the numbers is because we're still collecting those, and the reason we haven't asked for any additional staff, it's basically been, like this past year, has been an agreement through the department head meeting is nobody was gonna ask for extra staff.
Right, but I have never seen any proof why. I know, because I watch you guys, and I see you work very hard, but how do I compare that to anybody else?
Yep. Believe me, we're collecting it.
Yes, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. One is that, help me understand, no, not just the layout plats, but these other applications for different things. Help me understand the difference between, like, let's say you receive an application and you deem it incomplete. And then, but there's, even if you would then send it back, there's got to be some discussion as to, with the applicant saying, okay, we're saying it's incomplete for these reasons, and you go back and you correct some of these deficiencies. How does that process change from the current process where you accept the incomplete, so-called incomplete application, and then work with the applicant to fix the deficiencies? I mean, how, to me, it's sort of, two of the same thing. But tell me how those things would differ in terms of your staff time and how that would take some pressure off you and so on.
If we were to turn it back over to the applicant, then to us, it doesn't exist until we get it back.
But you'd still spend some time with the applicant saying, we're turning it back because of these reasons.
We'd have to, yeah. We spend a lot of time with people that
Right.
they're just asking questions.
So
or
you're
they're-
still spending time with them, so how does
Of course,
that?
but we should.
But yes, of course, but so tell me how that process is different than really what you're doing now in practice.
So the other part is if an application come in, let's take building permits, for example, and there's an approach permit that needs to be done or some other septic thing that needs to be done, obtained from the city, or an approval from a road district, not necessarily a highway, or something, anything. We'll accept it, and we'll put it through our review, our process, because they've already paid for it. And so we will, as our process as it's being reviewed through our process, it will, once that's completed, it won't get approved until we get what we need. Now, again, that review process is contingent on having as much information as we can to review it. But then it sits on a shelf essentially, and we document it in our tracking system that that this building permit is unapproved and it's in this location and we're waiting for this item. And then what will happen is every once in a while, we'll go back to that shelf and we'll look at them and we'll contact the applicants again and wait for them to come and bring what they're supposed to do.
So the
Right.
real difference is that in the current process, you take some responsibility in contacting the applicant and say, oh, by the way, where are you in getting us this piece of information? The alternative, where you just give it back to them, the responsibility for filling the gap, so to speak, would be entirely upon the applicant.
Yeah, we'd like to find somewhere in the middle of both of those, I think.
I see. The other thing I was going to say, I do think, based on what Lori was talking about checklists, I was going to say checklists, as a user of, city and county services and so on, I've always thought checklists would be very helpful, because it's very different from reading, as a non-staff person, reading these ordinances and so on and trying to figure out exactly what I need to do. That's very different than if it was just a list saying, okay, I have to do this, I have to do this, this. And if there could be something like that, with some narrative, of course, to, help understand it, it seems to me that's gotta reduce the amount of time that.
Do we have a list already? Do you have a list when they have issues?
So there's checklists for some items, we do have them. And then also on the back of all the applications, it'll kind of go through the process, and also to supplement that is what's in the ordinance. Now, we're assuming everybody's going to read them.
That's the bottom line.
That's
Kathy,
right.
think.
I mean, I know that.
Because I had looked and and that's what I had put on my paper, the list and the process, and that's what I was gonna ask him. If there's a list, that's fine, but what's the process? Because we went through that in our changing of ordinances. Not everybody knows the ordinances, and not everybody knows where to find them, and what area, because some of it you have to go to waste, you got to go to peer on different things, and some places you got to go to state. Do you remember that, Travis? So that was very helpful,
Yes.
where to find things that you had to go to, so the staff wouldn't have to do it for you, plus it'd teach you the process in the meantime. So the list and the process and where to find it is a lot easier than just saying, okay, this is the list, now go. That'll make you more confused without knowing where to go to find it.
And sometimes we don't know where to tell them to go because they didn't tell us the information that then would spark the saying you need state approval.
Right.
We could sit with people for hours with, if you do this, then this. If you do this, this, and this, not this, then you do this. So we answer the questions that were asked and through experience try to elaborate on them a little bit. But I can tell you probably more than 90% of the time, what we're asked originally and what we answer is not what they come back with.
Right.
And then they say, how come you didn't tell us before? Well, because you didn't ask, and you didn't even propose that before. So that's frustrating on both sides.
Well,
Takes extra time.
And Mr. Chair, I mean, you're a services group, and you get good comments from the public on the service you provide, and I don't think you want to lose sight of that.
Right.
You're not here to generate revenue. You're a services group, and you need to provide that service.
But how you do it efficiently, and then for them to understand, maybe we need to ask a few people that have went through that or have never went through the process, what would make it easier, or even people on both sides of that.
Because it kind of sounds like your process is a little too open-ended. Maybe you need to put some limits on it.
There are
Some
limits.
time limits on some things, so they don't continually sit on the shelf.
For that one building permit example,
You
absolutely, yeah.
need to, when you meet with someone, say, okay, well, here, we'll talk about this, if we don't hear back from you in 60 days, 90 days, whatever you decide is reasonable, then, you'll have to start over again, or, something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Sort of, yeah, but to be able to do that properly, then if, like, say we have a building permit that's been sitting on the shelf for 90 days and we're waiting for something, and we call them, we redocument that we call them, we don't hear from them, then we're gonna send them a letter. And we gotta wait for 10 days on that approximately. Then we gotta send them a certified letter, because we're taking something away that they've paid for.
They paid for it.
So there is that investment of time, which then actually, if we can clear that building permit
It
off
makes
the
it go
books.
away.
Yeah.
It just excuse me, may I speak? Yeah.
Go ahead.
It just strikes me, though, that there's got to be some judgment on when you really don't accept it at all. You don't take their money, you don't take their application, you say, really, you need to, complete these items. And then the responsibility for moving it forward is, it's on them. And then that's different than if you accept it, knowing that there's just one or two or three or whatever outstanding issues that seem reasonable to you, that, I mean, it just seems to me there's got to be some times when you just say, you got to go back and work on that.
A lot of the time, we'll have people show up at our counter with nothing, and they want a building permit with nothing. We'll give them the building permit, they fill it out there, we'll print a map off of Rapid Map for them, and they'll draw on it where it is. We'll give them paper so that they can do a floor plan, and these are for basic things. But, I mean, we get where surveyors come in with everything you could possibly imagine, beautiful application, and then people who just come up and say, I need a building permit for a garage with living quarters. And right then and there, we don't turn them away, because we assume they probably don't know what they're asking for, because they don't have anything. So we try to work with them. Sometimes they do have to just take the paperwork we give them, we put a nice little folder in it and give them the business card of the person they're working with, and say, you need to go get a couple other things because you really don't have anything. But other times, we'll work with them for an hour or so just to get the $25 building permit that they're looking for a shed.
PJ, I'm wondering, for the number of these permits or time-consuming issues, is this a very high percentage of them overall? Would you?
Building permits?
these ones that are very time-consuming, like you're describing, would you say this is a pretty pervasive issue, or, I mean, percentage-wise?
We have a lot of different permits that come through. We never know when we get them. Most of them go through pretty fast. The majority of the building permits don't take that long. We can usually turn them over roughly within 7 to 10 business days, unless there's an issue. And I'd say 10% maybe have issues. It's the conditional use permits, the rezones, the variances, the plat, all the three of the different types of platting. Those are the things that take a lot more in-depth. And again, we're producing research papers, multiple research papers every week in addition to everything else we're doing on every permit you see. Because every one of those ones you see starts out as blank pages, and we fill it in. So that's what a lot of our time is balanced. And
So would you say of this estimated 10%, that 10% takes, say, more than 50% of time? Is it that bad?
No, I wouldn't say that. You want to disagree? The way the process works now is all building permits go into Cassie, and Cassie we highlight where they need to go in the office, and we track where they are, so we don't have to look on 8 different desks and piles of paper. Then they come back to Cassie, and then she'll review them one more time, then they come to me. So Cassie really has her fingers on most of what's happening with the building permits. Well, she was out for 3 months. I went back to doing it because that's what I did when I was the assistant director for a while. And building permits do take a considerable amount of time, just whether they're a problem or not, because there's the tracking, they're in a system where we have to update it. And if it gets routed to our addressing coordinator, our septic coordinator, or to the city or to another agency, we have to scan it, email it. I mean, all that stuff, it takes time. It's not a long time to scan something, but again, we try to turn them around in 7 to 10 business days if we can. Most of the time, we're successful with that. Sometimes we turn them around in the same day if we can.
So what's been the experience of, has any of the planning commission members been through the process in PJ's office, so they kind of know the process and how that process works and how that had worked for them and the changes that might need to be looked at?
Well, I've been through the process, but it's been a number of years, so I'm not sure that it's really relevant.
Or it might have changed.
No, but, we've had building permits and easements and different things, but it's been a while. But just on one other note, many, just across the, institutions all over, they're trying to use technology in some form or another to reduce the time and effort and streamline and on and on. Do you feel that you are using, and granted, not everybody that you deal with, I'm sure, is, to the level where they can use much technology, and we have to account for that, of course. But do you feel like you have kind of maximized what's available out there, or is there some technological solutions here that could be applied that would make things a little easier?
From my experience, having been the beta tester for technology for the city of Phoenix for my department, we haven't even scratched the surface on what's available out there. We could do things so much faster, but we just don't have the money for it. We have filing cabinets along an entire wall that have building permits going back all the way to the 70s. We would love to be able to just sit down and scan them. We don't have the staff time to do that. We don't have the money to get a temporary person to come in and do that. So we're kind of stuck with hard copies, where the ideal thing would be to be able to sit at a desk and be able to have access to all the different systems and all the information and never have to leave that one spot. Right now, if somebody comes to the counter, we may have to go look in a file room to pull a file. We may have to go to another cabinet to get a building permit. Again, all hard copies. We even have information for properties on index cards. So no, we're not even close to maximizing technology. Not even minimize.
I guess if I was a department head, I would look at areas maybe that I could increase some of those building permits and different things that would be helpful. And then the other thing is, there's a lot of volunteer people that probably would go in there and help scan that. So when I run a department or I run something, I always look at innovative ways to get it done or move it forward in a way that the understanding of the commission is that you do need this. It would cut staff time and money in the long run. But a lot of this, PJ, we'd like to see lists of different things that need to be moved forward, and just like comprehensive plan, some of the money can be put away for these capital costs that you need for things to make your department more efficient.
And I agree. I'd say we are actually very efficient. There was a time, because we had half of our staff out, and of the staff that was there, only one person was doing everything. That was recently. So what we have been doing, and what Cassie and Brittany understand as the assistants, is the director needs to be able to do those big picture things. And we've been moving towards that, where Cassie is taking on more things and creating her systems. Brittany's taking on her things and creating more systems. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, because I enjoy doing it, is I'm not free to do just the big picture things. I'm still writing staff reports, still visiting with people, still doing counter duty, still answering phones, still doing deposits when Jerry's not around. And that's how we're making it work. But we are practicing and trying to get to what you're saying, so that the department head is free to do and go after those bigger things. And also to touch on, when you had asked anybody if they had been through the process before, when Rick was out here from Matrix, he put a call out to surveyors to ask them, and engineers, ask them, what did you think about the plating process and the subregs? And we sent it out to 25 different people and companies that we knew of. 3 showed up. We did the same thing with our septic. 1 showed up. So we've tried. We got it out there. He got good information back, at least from the surveyors, about some of the processes, because some of the information in the subregs could be adjusted a little bit. We know that, we believe it, that's why we're going through this process.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
You mentioned something about scanning documents. I recall a few years ago that there was a plan in place to get your documents scanned, so that plan was not implemented. I recall that you were having volunteers coming in to scan things.
No.
It was several years ago, and I think it was before you were director,
Okay.
that there was a plan in place to try to get that material scanned in and organized. So it sounds like that was not done. That's what I recall.
No, we scan Jerry scans some items now, like the files that for like conditional use permits and plats and stuff. That information gets
The current
scanned.
stuff, but there was some.
No, not all the current stuff. That gets put into something called File Director, but there is also memory size limits in there and whether it can be color or not. We are looking to, when we can get to scanning building permits, to using our existing Track It system and uploading them into there, because we want a one-stop shop for all the information.
Since you've been in Arizona and you said that we're not very updated, I guess I would like to see the list of things that you think would make your department more efficient, and how it'd be more efficient compared to Arizona or whoever you were speaking of, and how they did that.
Yep.
Kind of like the list we talked about in the process, but I would like to see that through your planning department and what we're lacking and what can make it more efficient.
Yeah, and getting different systems in place would be great. Some of the systems we share with Rapid City, so it's wouldn't be just our, like Track It, we pay some of the money. Rapid City is the one that oversees it, so.
And if it works for Rapid City, we do have joint agreements that work very well with
Correct.
Rapid City on stuff. So
Correct.
that's where we need to move forward. This mayor is very good about,
Yep.
putting joint agreements together that work very well for both sides.
Our ideal, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that in the current, the current stuff, the easiest way to get stuff in electronic format for these systems is to require submission in electronically.
Mhm.
Now, I know that not everybody that I see out here is prepared to do that, but to the extent you can require electronic submission, then you don't have to scan it. It's already in a form where you can just.
We run into, and here's another issue that I forgot about, we run into people who are very proficient with computers.
Oh,
Some people that don't have electric on their property.
Of course.
And can you just go to a library and get something? They don't want to do it, so we have to hover in the middle to accommodate every citizen.
Oh, I understand that clearly, but, even if half of them came in electronically.
It'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our goal, I guess you could say, is to end up where Meade County is right now. They have tablets with all the information in them. They could be out in the field, they could press on a property, and it pulls up all the permits from that property, the plats from that, and basically everything that we have in paper and Register of Deeds has in paper or scanned, they have access to in the field through their cloud system.
Well,
That takes
equalization,
years to get to. They have something, equalization has something close to it.
well, that's why I said they moved forward in theirs, and we're still where we're at in the planning department. So, like I said, some of this stuff needs to be moved forward, PJ, in a way that you're
And-
saying I need 10,000 for this or 20,000. That's how we do it in government. A lot of times is through saving through the big picture. How about that? Just
Right.
like anybody else would in their budget.
And that's what we did with the comprehensive plan, because that was our driving force. Any innovation that we do is useless unless we update the comprehensive plan, because that's the main driving document for the county.
Well,
So
and if-
we had done it that way. And then with the knowledge that budgets were going to be tight this year and possible budget cuts, but we're kind of different from that, we didn't ask for anything more.
Yes, but if you know ahead of time and you've been waiting for it a year or two or 5 years or whatever, just like your comprehensive plan, it went through.
Yep.
If we know we're gonna have a more efficient planning department through making these steps, we don't have to do them all at once, you're gonna tell me that the commissioners will decide that it's not worth it?
Well,
I
I hope
think you're
not.
gonna get a lot of backlash from the public if we're not trying to make things efficient for the future through electronics. And I agree, computer systems and different things that we can do. We started doing registered deeds, treasurer's office. We've been updating things for a couple of years since I've been here because there was a lot of outcry from the public that we need to make it more efficient, so we have. So this is, the next step is to do it through our planning department.
And don't misunderstand us, we have been prepping for that. You guys just haven't been hit with the requests yet. We are,
Right.
but we're timing it. Main thing was that comprehensive plan, and then knowing going into this budget year that things were going to be even worse, we didn't even ask.
Well, just putting things
So-
in capital costs for the future instead of just hitting everybody with the, all at once, it usually doesn't work so well.
I'll take that as a motion acceptance and a approval to request then.
Got her,
Show me what you got.
got her hint.
Yep, now, we won't get it all at once. You'll get the primary things first.
Any further on this item? None, seeing none, then items from the membership.
I'll miss the 9/11 meeting. I'm on vacation.
Which one?
9/11?
9/11.
Isn't that the next one?
Yep.
I may as well. It's
Anything further from the membership? If not, I would entertain a motion. Oh,
Just one final thing. I do appreciate the conversation we had and the planning commission taking an active interest because, as we've said many times, having planning commission support to take something to the board is very valuable to us.
just make
So-
sure we have the data that we need to show where
you
your work is.
you
I've already seen.
you've seen it,
what you're
so.
showing me, And that's why I gave you my synopsis of what I want to
Yep,
see.
as I say, we've been working on it, so.
I would entertain a motion for,
So moved.
Second.
motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.